Chapter 31:26. Dormant Activity. The Rakshasa hall administrator looked at Nyetian, and his flickering eyes slowly turned resolute. Actually, when he first saw Nyetian, he was somewhat disappointed. However, Nyetian's subsequent performances had amazed him time and time again. At this moment, he had an indescribable trust in Nyetian. He believed that this young cultivator before him would definitely grow up to become the astral holy lord. Nyetian did not know what the Rakshasa hall administrator was thinking, so he could not help but frown and ask, "Lord Administrator, I obtained my army breaking star from Shadow Fire Broken. Could he be a star venerate?" The Rakshasa hall administrator said that those who merged with a forbidden star soul were star venerates. This made Nyetian feel strange. Was Shadow Fire Broken a star venerate? Of course, Shadow Fire Broken is not a star venerate. The Rakshasa hall administrator laughed and said, "The army-breaking star soul in Shadow Fire Broken's body is not a complete forbidden star soul. It is only one of the 3 parts of the killing wolf star soul. Furthermore, Shadow Fire Broken's army-breaking star soul was merged with someone else, not the astral holy lord. Only in the hands of the astral holy lord can a forbidden star soul perfectly merge with a cultivator." At this point, the Rakshasa hall administrator's lips twitched. If Shadow Fire Broken was a star venerate, he would not be so weak. So that's how it is. Nyetian's eyes narrowed as he nodded slightly. So only the astral holy lord could perfectly merge a forbidden star soul. At this moment, Nyetian suddenly recalled this matter and couldn't help but furrow his brows as he asked, "Lore Hall Supervisor, previously, I killed Shadow Flame Ruiner once, but he came back to life again. Was it because of the Army Destroyer Star Soul?" "Yes." The Rakshasa hall administrator nodded and said, "Anyone who merged with a forbidden star soul will not die as long as the star soul is not destroyed. Unless they release the star soul themselves, they will not be able to come back to life. I did not expect the forbidden star soul to be so powerful." Nyetian's eyes narrowed, his face filled with shock. The power of a forbidden star soul was simply too terrifying. It could actually revive a cultivator from the dead. If the Shadow Flame Ruinous Star hadn't released his Army Destroyer astral soul, then even if he had been killed by Nyetian, he would have been reborn. Sadly, his desire to win was too strong. He wholeheartedly wanted to defeat Nyetian, but in the end he lost his astral soul and his life. Lore Hall Supervisor, who exactly is that person? To think that he was actually able to allow the Shadow Flame Broken Army astral soul to fuse with the Army Destroyer astral soul? After which, Nyetian furrowed his brows as he asked again. The Juying Temple is a very mysterious organization. There's a powerful figure behind it. The Luosha Temple Lord's face darkened, and his expression became much more serious. He then looked at Nyetian and said, "However, Nyetian, this is not something you need to worry about." Nyetian nodded, but his expression didn't look good. Earlier, he had seen Ing Qinyu take out a medallion in an attempt to threaten the mysterious heaven's chosen venerable, but the venerable ignored him. Although Ing Qinyu's threat had failed, Nyetian could tell that there was definitely a powerful figure behind the Juying Temple, and this person was definitely from the Saints' world. Perhaps it was this person who had helped Ing Qinyu fuse with the Army Destroyer astral soul. A while later, Nyetian became much colder. His lips curled into a smile as he looked at the Luosha Temple Lord. "Lore Hall Supervisor, if I've guessed correctly, it was you who arranged for me to come to the Luosha Hall of 10 Directions, right?" "Yes." The Luosha Temple Lord nodded. He studied Nyetian with a burning gaze, and only after a long while did he say, "If I'm not wrong, you've already unsealed 2 of the star-marked dark seals in your body." "Yes." Nyetian nodded honestly. Since the Luosha Temple Lord was an envoy of space, there was obviously no need for him to hide anything. He said, "I've already met other envoys. The first 2 star-marked dark seals were unsealed with the help of the 3rd envoy of space. So you've met other envoys of space. No wonder." The Luosha Temple Lord smiled faintly, and then a strange expression appeared on his face. He said, "Nyetian, I can sense that there are two extremely powerful forces fighting within your body. What's going on? Nietion's eyes narrowed. He did not hide anything, and he told the Luosha temple lord about the fiend god body and the formation of heavenly ways. One was the backlash from the fiend god body, and the other was the power of the formation of heavenly ways. In the past, he had forcefully activated the fiend god body, which resulted in a backlash. Fortunately, the formation of heavenly ways allowed him to temporarily suppress the backlash. I've long since heard that the fiend god origin embryo is the greatest ancient taboo, but I never thought it would be so powerful. The Luosha temple lord looked at Nietion with a stern expression. Nietion, either one of the two forces in your body is enough to destroy your martial physique in an instant. However, the two forces are currently fighting against each other, causing your martial physique to be in a dangerous balance. Even though you're safe for now, the two forces are too powerful, putting great pressure on your martial physique and even damaging your martial Dao foundation. If this situation continues, it will be a great hindrance to your future martial Dao. After saying this, the Luosha temple lord frowned with an unpleasant expression. Lord Luosha, I know what you just said. Nietion frowned and said with a helpless expression, but there's nothing I can do now. The Luosha temple lord nodded and said while shaking his head, for now, we can only maintain the status quo. With his current strength, he had no way to help Nietion eliminate the two forces. He could only let Nietion deal with them himself. Following which, Nietion became cold and asked the Luosha temple lord, Lord Luosha temple lord, I would like to know why you brought me here. Don't be anxious. You'll know soon enough. The Luosha temple lord did not answer Nietion directly. Instead, he smiled mysteriously and said, for now, let the Azure Dragon Astral Soul return to the original Astral Soul canon. Nietion's eyes lit up and he nodded heavily. After which, with a thought, the original Astral Soul canon appeared and the second page slowly flipped open. The Azure Dragon Astral Soul in the Luosha Temple Lord's hand turned into astral runes and slowly entered the original Astral Soul canon. Very quickly, the Azure Dragon Astral Soul turned into an Astral Soul diagram and appeared on the original Astral Soul canon. Nietion looked at the Azure Dragon Astral Soul and could not help but frown. He said in shock, why is the Azure Dragon Astral Soul already inscribed? Previously, when the Army Destroyer Astral Soul returned to the original Astral Soul canon, the Astral Soul's diagram was gray and had to be reinscribed before it could be used. But this time, the Azure Dragon Astral Soul was actually already inscribed. This greatly exceeded Nietion's expectations. Nietion, the taboo Astral Soul, is not inscribed. It originally existed. The Luosha Temple Lord looked at Nietion and laughed. There are two types of taboo astral souls. One is a dormant astral soul, and the other is an active astral soul. The dormant astral soul is gray in the original Astral Soul canon and cannot be used directly. Only after the astral runes are activated and the astral soul becomes active can it be used. Under normal circumstances, after the astral soul returns to the original Astral Soul canon, it will enter a dormant state, just like the Army Destroyer Astral Soul. However, the Azure Dragon Astral Soul used very little astral runes. The power of the astral runes is strong enough, so it can still maintain its active state. Chapter 31:27. Rakshasa Vajra. After listening to the words of the Luosha Hall elder, Nietion finally understood that there was no need to inscribe a forbidden astral soul. It only needed to be activated. Astral runes were not used to inscribe forbidden astral souls, but to activate them. He guessed that the previous star souls weren't inscribed, but rather they were activated by astral energy and spiritual energy. After the Army Destroyer Astral Soul returned to the Origin Codex, it entered a dormant state. However, the Azure Dragon Astral Soul was in an active state. Did this mean that he could directly use the Azure Dragon Astral Soul? The Azure Dragon Astral Soul was much stronger than the Army Destroyer Astral Soul. If he could use it, Wouldn't it mean that Nyetian would be able to use it to fight against a ninth-step pseudo-sage? Yes. The Rakshasa Palace Deacon knew what Nyetian was thinking. He smiled faintly and said, "The Azure Dragon Astral Soul is a complete taboo astral soul. It is very hard to control. You have only awakened 2 of your Star Trace Dark Seals. It would be extremely difficult for you to control the Azure Dragon Astral Soul. With your strength, even if you use the Azure Dragon Star Soul, it can only help you fight against a 9th stage pseudo-sage. Against a rank 9 pseudo-sage." Nyetian's eyes flickered with excitement. He was only a first-ranked pseudo-sage. The Azure Dragon Astral Soul was sufficient for him to fight against a 9th-ranked pseudo-sage. He was already very satisfied. "Nyetian, based on your current strength, it would be extremely difficult for you to activate a forbidden astral soul. Hence, the Azure Dragon Astral Soul is one of your trump cards. Unless you have no other choice, don't use it easily," the Rakshasa Palace Deacon said in a deep voice as he looked at Nyetian. "I know." Nyetian smiled and nodded heavily. His eyes were filled with passion. The deacon of the Luosha Hall nodded his head as he stared at Nyetian with a strange look in his eyes. "Nyetian, it's best if you don't use the Forbidden Astral Soul now. After all, the Forbidden Astral Soul will be bestowed to the Astral Monarch in the future. Unless, in the future, you can really inscribe your own Star Soul. The Star Souls above the Star Soul Original Codex were all original existences. Nyetian only needed to activate his Astral Souls. But Astral Souls could really be inscribed. However, the current Nyetian was simply too weak. It was extremely difficult for him to even activate a forbidden astral soul, let alone inscribe one. Nyetian, it's time for you to participate in the welcoming ceremony of the Rakshasa Temple of 10 Directions, said the head of the Rakshasa Temple with a strange smile as he looked at Nyetian. Nyetian was startled. He furrowed his brows and asked, "Hall Supervisor, what exactly is that welcoming ceremony?" "Don't ask too much. You'll know when you get there." The Rakshasa Temple Lord did not answer Nyetian. Instead, he smiled mysteriously. "Star Slave, bring Nyetian to the Rakshasa field," the Rakshasa Hall Supervisor said to the void. "Yes." In the void, Star Slave's voice resounded. Nyetian frowned. He didn't notice that the guy called Star Slave had actually returned at some point in time. Star Slave was the person who had captured Nyetian previously. Nyetian was very curious as to where Star Slave would bring him next. Crash! In the next moment, just as Nyetian was feeling puzzled, the sound of a metal chain rolling was suddenly heard in the air. Following that, a huge metal chain suddenly appeared and attacked Nyetian. Nyetian exclaimed in surprise. Before he could react, he was directly tied up by the metal chain. This sudden scene caused Nyetian's face to darken. He instinctively wanted to react, but he discovered that the 9 yuan meridians in his body were tightly sealed. He lowered his head to take a look. The metal chain was actually engraved with dark runes. "Nyetian, don't resist. Star Slave will not hurt you." The Rakshasa Temple Lord could not help but laugh when he saw Nyetian's panicked expression. Nyetian was speechless. He could not say a word. Even if Star Slave did not hurt him, there was no need to use this method to take him away. "Let's go." The Rakshasa Temple Lord looked into the void and nodded slightly. Crash! Following that, the metal chain suddenly straightened and Nyetian's figure was directly pulled away. After a while, Nyetian came to a place high up in the sky. Suddenly, he felt a little familiar. He suddenly realized that he had come to the huge public square from before. Following that, he lowered his head to look at the public square. At first, he did not find anything strange. Following that, his gaze shifted to the huge stone pillars surrounding the public square. The scene that entered his eyes made him completely stunned. At this moment, the huge stone pillars were actually filled with people. They were densely packed, like a bamboo pole with ants crawling all over it. "Are they waiting for me?" Nyetian frowned as he looked down, a surprised expression appearing on his face. If these people were waiting for him, this was not a small scene. "He's here." At the same time, The crowd below discovered Nyetian, and someone exclaimed, "Go!" Following that, Star Slave's voice sounded. Following that, the metal chain, like a dragon, swooped down and directly sent Nyetian to the public square. Nyetian frowned, and his face could not help but sink. Following that, the crowd on the stone pillars around the public square immediately burst into an uproar and let out a tsunami of laughter. Seeing this scene, Nyetian's face could not help but become even more gloomy. At this moment, he felt as if he had entered a coliseum and the people on the stone pillars were all spectators. In the next moment, he suddenly felt a terrible, evil aura coming from above his head. It was extremely violent and made him frown involuntarily. He suddenly raised his head and saw 4 huge metal cages in the sky. Within the cages, there were 4 gigantic beasts that were like mountains. They had ferocious faces and were staring at him with bloodthirsty eyes. It really is a coliseum. Nyetian frowned, and his expression suddenly changed. He suddenly felt a sense of humiliation. So this was the way the Rakshasa Temple of 10 Directions welcomed him, letting him fight with the gigantic beasts in this Rakshasa arena for fun. At this moment, he finally understood the Rakshasa King's mockery and the boundless desolate ghost's reminder. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. At this moment, the 4 huge metal cages in the sky opened, and then 4 gigantic hands descended from the sky, smashing down like giant rocks. Bang, 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 bang. The 4 gigantic beasts fell almost at the same time and smashed heavily on the public square, directly smashing out a huge pit with a radius of a few hundred meters. At this moment, Nyetian clearly saw the faces of the 4 gigantic beasts. These 4 gigantic beasts were more than 100 meters tall and covered with black hair like steel needles. They looked very similar to violent apes, but the aura of their bodies was countless times stronger than violent apes. Nyetian took a deep breath and was extremely surprised. Judging from the aura of the 4 gigantic beasts, their combat power was definitely comparable to a rank 5 pseudo-sage expert. These 4 gigantic beasts were the ferocious beasts reared by the Rakshasa Temple of 10 Directions, Rakshasa Vajra. At this moment, a voice sounded in the sky and directly shouted out Nyetian's name. Nyetian. Chapter 31:28. A bloody massacre, boundless desolate ghost. Nyetian looked at boundless desolate ghost in the sky and frowned, not knowing what the latter wanted to do. Nyetian, we meet again. High up in the sky, boundless desolate ghost looked at Nyetian from afar and said loudly, "This devil son welcomes you on behalf of the Rakshasa Temple." Boundless desolate ghost, your Rakshasa Temple's way of welcoming distinguished guests is really special. Nyetian frowned and said in a deep voice, clearly very dissatisfied. However, boundless desolate ghost ignored him and said loudly, "Nyetian, the 4 Rakshasa Vajra in front of you are comparable to a rank 5 pseudo-sage martialist. If you think you're no match for them, you can say it directly. As long as you shout 'I am weak' in front of everyone, this devil's son will immediately cancel this welcoming ceremony. However, this devil's son reminds you that if you can't even pass the welcoming ceremony, you'll not be taken seriously in the Rakshasa Temple." After saying that, boundless desolate ghost stared at Nyetian with a burning gaze, waiting for the latter to speak. Nyetian frowned, but did not respond for a long time. In fact, he could totally shout, "I am weak," because he did not care what the people of the Rakshasa Temple thought of him. But this way, he felt like he was being played, which made him very unhappy. At this time, the people of the Rakshasa Temple could not help but laugh when they saw that Nyetian did not speak. This kid is just a rank 1 pseudo-sage. Not to mention 4 Rakshasa Vajra. Even 1 Rakshasa Vajra can easily tear him apart. A rank 1 pseudo-sage scum dares to come to the Rakshasa Temple. He really doesn't know death. He should just call himself scum. This silver-haired kid must be afraid. It seems that there is no good show to watch today. What a disappointment. As the crowd discussed among themselves, the way they looked at Nyetian was filled with undisguised contempt and ridicule. Nyetian looked at the crowd and furrowed his brows. The corners of his mouth slowly curled into an arc as he said in a loud voice, "Let's begin." Begin? When the crowd heard Nyetion's words, their eyes trembled violently, as if they had heard wrongly. This brat only has the strength of a rank 1 pseudo-sage. How dare he challenge for Rakshasa Vajras? Isn't he courting death? The crowd roared with laughter. They looked at Nyetion as if they were looking at a fool. Nyetion completely ignored the crowd and looked up at the boundless desolate ghost high up in the sky. Begin. Desolate ghost's cold eyes flashed strangely, and then he growled, "Woo!" As soon as he finished speaking, the sound of a bugle horn rang out in the void. Roar, roar, roar. In the next moment, the 4 Rakshasa Vajra demons suddenly went berserk. They let out thunderous roars, and their huge bodies charged towards Nyetion like moving mountains. Nyetion's eyes narrowed slightly as he sensed the bloody aura coming towards him. However, the corner of his lips curled up slightly. These Rakshasa Vajra demons were extremely strong. Their muscles bulged, emitting an explosive force. However, they did not pose much of a threat to Nyetion. Nyetion could easily deal with them even if he only dodged. However, he had no intention of dodging. His eyes were filled with killing intent, and his entire body surged with sword intent. Since these people wanted to play, Nyetion would play with them. Today, Nyetion would not let these people enjoy themselves. He would let them thoroughly experience what it meant to be shocked. Boom, 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 rumble. The 4 Rakshasa Vajras charged directly towards Nyetion in an incomparably violent manner. Seeing that the 4 frenzied figures were getting closer and closer to Nyetion, everyone's eyes became incomparably blazing as they started to shout crazily. "Tear him apart! Tear him apart! Tear him apart!" The crowd on top of the stone pillars burst into hysterical laughter. They could almost see the moment when Nyetion was torn to pieces by the Rakshasa Vajra demons. Boom! However, at that moment, a towering sword intent suddenly exploded from Nyetion's body. 12 heavenly slaying sword formation. Activate. Following that, Nyetion's lips twitched, and the sword intent in his body instantly surged to the extreme. Boom, boom, boom. In the next moment, 12 heavenly slaying sword shadows appeared and soared into the sky like raging dragons. Everyone's eyes trembled violently at that moment, and they were extremely shocked. They clearly did not expect Nyetion to be able to explode with such terrifying power in an instant. However, what happened next was even more unexpected. Boom, 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 boom. In the sky, 12 heavenly slaying sword shadows formed into 4 violent sword shadows that charged towards the 4 Rakshasa Vajra demons. Boom, 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 boom. In the next moment, the sword shadows bombarded the Rakshasa Vajra demons, and there was a deep muffled sound in the void. The 4 Rakshasa Vajra demons directly exploded, and their flesh and blood splattered everywhere. It was extremely tragic. Before they died, they did not even have the chance to let out a final scream. The sound of the horn in the sky stopped abruptly. The surrounding shouting stopped abruptly. The entire Rakshasa field was dead silent. Gasp! After a long time, there was a series of gasps in the field. Who would have thought that the 4 Rakshasa Vajra demons would be killed by Nyetion in a second? They could not believe such a scene. One had to know that Nyetion only had the strength of a first-stage pseudo-holy. Humph. In the field, Nyetion stood still and said with a faint smile, "Rakshasa Vajra demons? What a mess." His faint voice was like a slap to everyone's face. They originally thought that Nyetion would be torn to pieces by the Rakshasa Vajra demons, but they did not expect Nyetion to be so terrifying. In the sky, Boundless Ghost frowned in surprise. He had fought with Nyetion before, so he knew Nyetion's strength. He knew that the 4 Rakshasa Vajra demons were no match for Nyetion, but he did not expect Nyetion's attack to be so terrifying. He killed the 4 Rakshasa Vajra demons in a second. It was a complete bloody massacre. Nyetion, you have passed the welcoming ceremony. Come with me. Boundless Ghost said in a deep voice and was ready to leave with Nyetian. Wait. However, at this moment, a voice was heard, and then a figure appeared. Rakshasa King. When Nyetian saw the figure that suddenly appeared, he could not help but frown, and his heart sank. He knew that the Rakshasa King hated him deeply, so the latter's appearance made him feel inexplicably uneasy. Rakshasa King, what else do you want? Boundless Ghost looked at the Rakshasa King with a frown and asked in a deep voice. Your Highness, according to the rules of the Rakshasa Temple, Nyetian defeated the Rakshasa Vajra demons. Shouldn't he challenge a stronger opponent next? The Rakshasa King's eyes flashed with a vicious light as he said in a cold voice, Nyetian is a distinguished guest personally invited by the temple master and the temple superintendent. If this welcoming ceremony ends just like that, isn't it a little inappropriate? What do you want? Boundless Ghost asked coldly with a gloomy face. Chapter 31:29. I'll bet. Three-headed blood WIRM. When the crowd heard the Rakshasa King's words, they could not help but tremble in fear. The three-headed blood WIRM was a beast even more terrifying than the Rakshasa Guardian Warrior. The Rakshasa Guardian Warrior's strength was comparable to a rank 5 pseudo-sage expert, but the three-headed blood WRM strength was comparable to a rank 7 pseudo-sage expert. Wasn't letting a rank 1 pseudo-sage expert fight against the three-headed blood WIRM? Deviant Ghost Rakshasa King, I'm in charge of this welcoming ceremony. I won't allow your request. Desolate Ghost Boundless Ghost said coldly. He knew what the deviant ghost Rakshasa King was thinking. Humph. The Rakshasa King seemed to have expected the Boundless Ghost's reaction and was not angry. Instead, he laughed and said, Your Highness, this king was only making a suggestion. There's no need for you to be angry. He then looked at Nyetian and said, Furthermore, Nyetian is a weakling. It's impossible for him to fight against the three-headed blood WIRM. I'm just saying that he's an important guest to the Rakshasa Temple. It would be too shabby to welcome him with a Rakshasa Guardian Warrior. He crossed his arms in front of his chest and stared at Nyetian with disdain and mockery. Deserted Ghost frowned and his face darkened. He was no fool. How could he not hear the sarcasm in the Rakshasa King's words? Your Highness, since the Rakshasa King is so interested, how can I be a wet blanket? At this moment, Nyetian spoke. He looked at the Rakshasa King from afar and said with a faint smile, Lord Rakshasa King, how many three-headed blood WIRMs do you want to play with me? Looking at Nyetian, the Rakshasa King's eyes suddenly narrowed. With a cold smile, it said, Not many. For enough. 4. Everyone's eyes trembled and many people cried out in surprise. The Rakshasa King was too ruthless. He actually wanted Nyetian to challenge 4 three-headed blood WIRMs. Everyone knew that a single three-headed blood dragon was much more powerful than 4 Rakshasa Vajras. Nyetian only had the strength of a first-stage pseudo-sage. How could he fight against 4 three-headed blood WIRMs? Deviant Ghost Demon King is clearly targeting this kid. Could it be that he has some grudge against this kid? Someone said in a low voice after noticing something fishy. I heard that variant Ghost Rakshasa King's proud disciple, Yin Wuyu, died at the end of the Heaven's Choice path. That silver-haired kid is also a Heaven's Choice. Could it be that Yin Wuyu died at his hands? Another person's eyes flashed as he guessed. That must be it. The deviant Ghost Rakshasa King is clearly using this welcoming ceremony to kill this kid to avenge Yin Wuyu. Another person nodded and said. Everyone spoke one after another, directly revealing the thoughts of the Rakshasa King. Hence, everyone's eyes were focused on Nyetian, wondering what he would do next. 4 three-headed blood WIRMs, isn't that too few? At this moment, Nyetian spoke with a smile. Why don't deviant Ghost Rakshasa King take action personally, even if it's 5 three-headed blood WIRMs? Bastard. The deviant Ghost Rakshasa King was stunned for a moment before he reacted. He growled and said furiously, How can a mere three-headed blood WIRM compare to me? This kid is too arrogant. The crowd was shocked. They did not expect Nyetian to be so insolent. Asking the deviant ghost Rakshasa King to take action with 4 three-headed blood WIRMS was clearly insulting the deviant ghost Rakshasa King. Deviant ghost Rakshasa King, I was just joking. Why take it so seriously? Then, Nyetian smiled faintly and suddenly said, Deviant ghost Rakshasa King, if you really want me to challenge the three-headed blood WIRM, it's not impossible, but it's a little too boring to challenge them. The deviant ghost Rakshasa King frowned and his eyes lit up. He sneered and asked, How do you want to challenge them? Everyone's eyes were locked on Nyetian. They did not know what he wanted to do. How about this? Nyetian smiled faintly and said, Deviant ghost Rakshasa King, let's make a bet. I challenge for three-headed blood WIRMS. If I lose, you can do whatever you want with me. I'll give you anything you want. Really? The deviant ghost Rakshasa King's eyes narrowed when he heard Nyetian's words. He could not hide the excitement in his heart. What he was most interested in from Nyetian was the Star Origin Stone. Deviant ghost Rakshasa King, don't be so excited. I haven't finished speaking. Nyetian looked at the Rakshasa King with a faint smile on his face and said in a loud voice, If I win, I only want one thing from the Rakshasa King's body. What thing? The deviant ghost Rakshasa King could not help but ask. Deviant ghost demon infant. Nyetian's lips twitched as he uttered these words. Deviant ghost demon infant? The deviant ghost Rakshasa King was stunned when he heard these words. In the entire Rakshasa temple, other than Yin Wuyu, only he had a deviant ghost demon infant. And his deviant ghost demon infant was far stronger than Yin Wuyu's. The reason why he could become the Rakshasa King was because of the deviant ghost demon infant. He did not expect that Nyetian wanted his deviant ghost demon infant. If he lost the deviant ghost demon infant, his strength would be greatly weakened. He might not even be as strong as an ordinary rank 9 false sage. And once his strength weakened, he would lose his position as the Rakshasa King. Nyetian's request was really huge. The deviant ghost Rakshasa King hesitated and did not speak for a long time. Everyone looked at the deviant ghost Rakshasa King and could not help but discuss softly. Is the deviant ghost Rakshasa King afraid? Is that kid really so strong that he can fight against 4 three-headed blood WIRMS? What do you know? The deviant ghost demon infant is too important to the deviant ghost Rakshasa King. If he doesn't have the deviant ghost demon infant, he probably can't be the Rakshasa King anymore. This is going to be interesting. Is the deviant ghost Rakshasa King going to admit defeat? As the crowd spoke, they looked at the deviant ghost Rakshasa King with a trace of mockery. Lord Deviant Ghost Rakshasa King, since you don't dare to bet, then forget it. At this moment, Nyetian saw that the deviant ghost Rakshasa King was not speaking. So he said indifferently and turned to leave. Wait. At this moment, the deviant ghost Rakshasa King's eyes trembled, and he said solemnly, Nyetian, if you challenge 9 three-headed blood WRMS at the same time, I will bet with you. 9. When the crowd heard the deviant ghost Rakshasa King's words, they could not help but exclaim. 9 three-headed blood WIRMS were equivalent to 9 rank 7 false sage martial artists. To let a rank 1 false sage challenge 9 rank 7 false sages, the deviant ghost Rakshasa King's request was too much, right? However, the deviant ghost Rakshasa King did not care about the others. His eyes stared at Nyetian, and he said coldly in his heart, Nyetian, 9 three-headed blood WRMS, do you dare bet? No matter how strong you are, it's impossible to fight against 9 rank 7 false sages at the same time. Furthermore, this king has specially prepared a special 3-headed blood WIRMS for you. This time, it was Nyetian's turn to fall into silence. Nyetian, do you dare bet? At this moment, the deviant ghost Rakshasa King opened his mouth and shouted in an extremely provocative manner. Chapter 31:30. The three-headed blood dragon. In the Rakshasa field, the entire Rakshasa field fell into dead silence as soon as Nyetian finished his words. No one had expected Nyetian to agree to the Rakshasa King's bet. The Rakshasa king had proposed 9 three-headed blood dragons. Wasn't Yetion courting death by agreeing to the bet? What did you say? The Rakshasa king, who was high up in the sky, was stunned for more than 10 seconds before he finally reacted. It was unclear if he was excited or nervous, but his voice was trembling. Yetion clasped his hands behind his back and said with a plain tone, "I'll take the bet." The Rakshasa king's eyes narrowed when he heard Yetion's words. There was an unconcealable panic in his eyes. There was an inexplicable sense of unease in his heart. He felt as though he had fallen into Yetion's trap. However, it was clearly impossible for him to go back on his words now. In the next instant, the crowd came to their senses and burst into an uproar. Damn, that kid really made a bet with the Rakshasa king. Is he crazy? He's going against 9 three-headed blood dragons at the same time with the strength of a rank 1 pseudo-sage. He's either crazy or an idiot. Where did this little silver feather come from? He's so crazy. The crowd discussed loudly. The way they looked at Yetion had completely changed. There was shock, confusion, but most of it was contempt and mockery. As far as they were concerned, Yetion was an idiot. Anyone with an ounce of rationality would never agree to the Rakshasa king's bet. One had to know that he was going against 9 three-headed blood dragons. Yetion, have you really thought it through? In the sky, Huang Wujiang spoke as he looked at Yetion solemnly. He knew that Yetion's combat strength was far beyond that of an ordinary rank 1 pseudo-sage. However, it was simply impossible for him to go against 9 three-headed blood dragons at the same time. Not to mention Yetion, even he did not have the confidence. I've thought it through. Yetion looked at Boundless Desolation Ghost and smiled gently, his face filled with utmost confidence. Let's start. Desolate Ghost Wujiang frowned. Since Yetion said so, he had no choice but to say in a deep voice. He wondered where Yetion's confidence came from. Whoosh! Hua! Hua! Desolate Ghost's voice fell, and 9 huge iron cages appeared in the void. The three-headed blood serpent is out. Everyone looked at the 9 cages with trembling eyes and couldn't help but exclaim. Yetion narrowed his eyes and looked at the sky. In each of the 9 cages, there was a huge, ferocious beast. They were the three-headed blood dragons. The three-headed blood WYRM was not too big. It was only a few hundred meters long. Its long body was like a giant snake, but had 4 giant claws. Its body was covered with black sword-like scales, and it looked indestructible. The strangest thing was that there were 3 heads on the three-headed blood WRM's neck. The 3 mouths were wide open, and they let out a low growl. It was extremely violent. The crowd looked at the 9 three-headed blood WYRM, and their eyes trembled with excitement. 9 three-headed blood WYRM. This is the first time I've seen such a welcoming ceremony. So what? It's going to end soon. Yeah, no matter how powerful that kid is, he can't go against 9 three-headed blood WYRM. In my opinion, even 1 three-headed blood WYRM would be able to tear that kid apart in an instant. The crowd discussed, and their eyes were filled with bloodthirst. They couldn't wait to see the scene of Yetion being torn apart. Woo! At this moment, the deep sound of a bugle horn echoed in the void. Then, the 9 iron cages opened, and 9 giant beasts descended from the sky. They were like small hills, and they landed heavily on the square. Rumble. Suddenly, the plaza that was hundreds of thousands of meters in radius shook with a loud rumble, and a wave of dust that was tens of meters high rose from the ground. What a powerful aura! Yetion stood on the square, and he could feel the terrifying aura of the three-headed blood WYRM. He couldn't help but tremble. The wall of aura of the three-headed blood WYRM had exceeded Yetion's expectations. Judging from the aura, the three-headed blood WYRM was no weaker than an 8th-stage pseudo-sage. The crowd looked at the 9 three-headed blood WYRMs in the Luosha field, and their eyes trembled with fear. The three-headed blood WYRM this time is so huge, and its aura is too strong. That silver-haired kid is dead meat. The 9 three-headed blood WYRMs are so ferocious. I'm afraid that kid can't even withstand their aura. Who asked him to court death by agreeing to the Luo Sha King. Now he's going to die. As they spoke, their eyes shone with a malicious light. They looked at Niet Tian as if they were looking at a corpse. At this moment, the only excitement that Niet Tian could bring them was when he was torn apart by the three-headed blood WYRM. Oh no! Up in the sky, the boundless ghost's eyes narrowed, and his face darkened. He knew that something was wrong. He didn't expect the three-headed blood WYRM to be so powerful. Even he could only handle 3 of such terrifying three-headed blood WYRMs at most. How was Niet Tian going to deal with 9 three-headed blood WYRMs? Niet Tian, you're going to lose. The Luo Sha King stared at Niet Tian viciously and laughed coldly. Niet Tian stood on the Luo Sha field. Even though he had a firm heart, he couldn't help but be moved. Niet Tian, these three-headed blood WYRMs are not easy to deal with. Why don't you use the Azure Dragon Astral Soul to kill them? The Ghost Emperor said. There's no hurry. I'll play with them first. Niet Tian's eyes narrowed, and his lips curled up. The Azure Dragon Astral Soul was his greatest trump card. Once he used it, he could fight against a rank 9 pseudo-sage. It would be a waste to use such a trump card on the three-headed blood WYRM. Niet Tian wouldn't use the Azure Dragon Astral Soul unless he had no other choice. Woo! At this moment, the low sound of a horn reverberated in the air, sounding sinister and sinister. Roar! The three-headed blood WYRM was affected by the sound of the horn, and it let out a low roar that sounded like thunder. The scales on its body started to release a bloody aura, and it looked like a blood-colored rune that circulated around its body. Huh? Niet Tian frowned, and he suddenly felt the three-headed blood WRM's aura skyrocketing. Attack! In the next moment, he made up his mind and let out a low roar. The sword intent from his body shot up to the sky, and it was released like a raging wave. 9 limits of the starry sky kill. At the moment when the sword intent from his body skyrocketed to the limit, Niet Tian let out a low roar and slashed out with his sword. A sword shadow appeared in the air, and it was like a raging dragon that attacked one of the three-headed blood WYRMs. This kid is crazy. Seeing this scene, the crowd's eyes trembled violently, and they exclaimed. Under such circumstances, Niet Tian actually chose to make the first move. How ferocious! Roar! The three-headed blood WYRM was enraged. Its eyes were bloodshot, and they were filled with a murderous intent. With a roar, its huge body soared into the air, and it charged towards the sword shadow. Boom! Bang! In the next moment, the sword shadow landed on the three-headed blood WYRM, and it collapsed. Chapter 31:31. Shattering it with a single strike. Hovering in midair, Niet Tian sensed a chilly, murderous aura, and couldn't help but frown. He did not expect the three-headed blood WYRM to have such a strong defense that it was fine after taking a direct hit from him. Moreover, the three-headed blood WYRM retaliated violently after being enraged. Niet Tian, the attack of the three-headed blood WYRM is comparable to a rank 7 pseudo-sage, but its defense is stronger than a rank 8 pseudo-sage martial artist. It's impossible for you to kill the three-headed blood WYRM with your rank 1 pseudo-sage strength, Luo Sha King said coldly as he looked at the scene below. At the same time, everyone's eyes were burning with anticipation as they looked forward to the scene of Niet Tian being torn to pieces. In midair, Niet Tian's eyes narrowed as the wings of Astral Soul appeared on his back. He flapped his wings and retreated forcefully. Swoosh! Swoosh! In the next moment, 3 streaks of dark red light whizzed towards Niet Tian, almost brushing past him. Puff! Puff! Although Niet Tian had avoided the direct attack of the dark red rays of light, he was still affected by the aftershock. A wound appeared on his chest and back, instantly staining his body red. He retreated rapidly and stabilized himself a few thousand meters away. His face was solemn and his eyes were sharp. He dodged it. The crowd looked at Niet Tian in shock. They hadn't expected that Nietian would be able to dodge the attack in such a situation. This kid is quite capable. He even dodged it. So what if he dodged it? He's already injured and bleeding. The aura of blood will make the three-headed blood WYRM even more violent. Yeah, if this kid is smart, he'll admit defeat. Otherwise, he'll definitely die a horrible death. The crowd discussed among themselves, their eyes filled with an inexplicable passion. Nietian, you're going to lose. Luo Sha King, who was high up in the sky, said fiercely. Nietian, why are you trying to be brave? On the other side, Ghost Wasteland's sword-like eyebrows were slanted, and there was worry in his eyes. He didn't know why the Rakshasa Temple Warden wanted Nietian to come to the 10 Directions Rakshasa Temple, but the Rakshasa Temple Warden warned him that nothing must happen to Nietian. He guessed that Nietian must be very important to the Rakshasa Temple of 10 Directions. Therefore, if Nietian really couldn't hold on any longer, he would have to step in. These three beasts have really thick skin. In midair, Nietian stabilized his body. The wounds on his body had already stopped bleeding. His eyes were surging with a fierce light, and his fighting spirit was raging. The scariest thing about the three-headed blood dragon was the scales that covered its entire body. They were extremely tough and hard to break. Nietian was strong, but it was impossible for him to break the scales of the three-headed blood dragon. Nietian, you have to find a weakness of the three-headed blood dragon. The Ghost Emperor reminded Nietian. Okay. Nietian nodded his head. The sword essence around him surged violently again, covering his whole body. It made him look like a giant sword that was suspended in mid-air. Roar! 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 At this moment, 3 terrifying figures appeared. They were like dark red giant swords, oppressing the void and charging towards Nietian. The three-headed blood dragon's eyes were bloodshot, filled with extreme coldness and strong killing intent. 9 limits of starry sky, sky slash. Nietian felt the terrifying aura coming towards him. He roared and slashed out with starry sky slash. A giant sword shadow appeared, and the void shook under the huge impact. Bang! 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 The next moment, the sword shadow fell. 3 muffled sounds were heard almost at the same time, and the sword shadow collapsed. Boom! Immediately afterwards, a terrifying pressure burst forth and crashed towards Nietian like a raging tidal wave. Nietian flapped his wings and retreated a few thousand meters. He barely managed to avoid the attack, but he was in a sorry state. However, the next moment, the other 3-headed blood dragons charged over. Their dark red bodies were like mountains, oppressing the void. The void was filled with a strong smell of blood, and it was extremely ferocious. Boom! 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 Nietian struck out 3 times and forced the 3-headed blood dragons to retreat. His figure was like a rainbow as he flew into the sky. Run! Do you think you can escape? The Luo Sha King saw this and smiled cold. His eyes were filled with killing intent. Nietian had completely lost the ability to fight back under the attacks of the 3-headed blood dragons. He could only flee in all directions. However, this situation would not last long. There were 9 3-headed blood dragons in the Luo Sha field. Nietian would definitely not be able to hold on for long. Then, the crowd saw Nietian's figure flickering in the air. He dodged left and right, avoiding the 3-headed blood dragons head-on. This kid is smart. He keeps dodging the attacks. What's the use of dodging? Is he stronger than the 3-headed blood dragons? There are 9 3-headed blood dragons. If he gets hit once, he will be crippled even if he doesn't die. Dodging all the time is not a long-term strategy. If I were him, I would just admit defeat. The crowd discussed with a look of disdain on their faces. Bang! At this moment, a muffled sound came from the sky. A figure flew out, leaving a trail of blood in the air. It was Nietian. Although Nietian's figure was agile, he was still hit by the attack of the 9 3-headed blood dragons. Whoosh! He forcefully spread his wings of star soul in the air to stabilize his body. However, at this moment, his face was as pale as a sheet of paper, and there was a trace of blood at the corner of his mouth. Nyetian, you're definitely going to lose." Seeing this scene, the Rakshasa king laughed wildly, looking insufferably arrogant. "Lose?" Nyetian suddenly raised his head and looked cold at the Luo Sha king with disdain. He said cold, "Is that possible?" As soon as he finished speaking, the sword aura around his body suddenly increased. His blood chi stirred in the air, and his sword was as sharp as a blade. Nyetian, the three-headed blood dragon's weakness is in the middle head, at the center of its forehead. At this moment, the Ghost Emperor said in a deep voice, Nyetian nodded vigorously. With a cold look in his eyes, he flapped the wings on his back and shot forward like a sword that had left its string. What is he doing? When the crowd saw Nyetian rushing towards a three-headed blood dragon, they couldn't help but doubt their eyes. Nyetian had been hiding for so long. Why did he suddenly rush over? Wasn't he courting death? Courting death. The Luo Sha king's eyes trembled, and he said coldly. However, in the next moment, the scene in front of him caused his eyes to widen and his entire body to stiffen. Bang! High up in the sky, Nyetian slashed down with his sword. The sword's shadow was extremely sharp, and wherever it landed, there was a bloody light in the air. The three-headed blood dragon's head was smashed by Nyetian. Bang! The huge three-headed blood dragon fell to the ground, creating a layer of soil. After twitching a few times, it died completely. Chapter 31-32. At the last moment, it's dead. After a long while, the crowd reacted and looked at the corpse of the three-headed blood dragon and exclaimed, "Who would have thought that after hiding for so long, Nyetian could kill a three-headed blood dragon with one strike?" This kid found out the weakness of the three-headed blood dragon. The Luo Sha king exclaimed in his heart. The fatal weakness of the three-headed blood dragon was the center of the head in the middle. However, ordinary martial artists would not be able to tell. Even if they could, they might not have the guts to get close to the three-headed blood dragon. The Luo Sha king did not expect Nyetian to be so ferocious that he could get close to the three-headed blood dragon and kill it with one strike. At that moment, the uneasiness in his heart intensified. Roar! At that moment, one of the three-headed blood WIRMS let out a low roar and charged towards Nyetian with its enormous body. Nyetian's eyes darkened as he bellowed, killing intent filling his eyes. Good timing. Instead of retreating, he charged forward, forcefully withstanding the powerful aura of the three-headed blood dragon. Boom, boom, boom. When he got close to the three-headed blood dragon, Nyetian felt a terrifying bloody aura rushing towards him, causing his skin to crack inch by inch. The three-headed blood dragon's body was surrounded by a violent energy shield that was like a sharp blade. Within 100 meters of its body, there was a strong aura like a barrier. Go to hell. Nyetian felt excruciating pain all over his body, but he ignored it and slashed down with his sword. The sword essence was extremely sharp, and it hit the middle head of the three-headed blood dragon directly. Bang! Suddenly, there was a muffled sound and blood and brain matter splattered everywhere. The air was filled with the stench of blood. The three-headed blood dragon did not even have the chance to let out a final shriek before it died tragically. How ferocious! The bloody scene shocked everyone, and they exclaimed, "Boom!" And at this moment, Nyetian suddenly felt a tremendous pressure coming from behind him. It was like a gigantic mountain that wanted to crush everything in its path. He furrowed his brows and turned around abruptly. He saw a three-headed blood dragon behind him, less than 100 meters away. Its huge claws slammed down, and the void seemed to be torn apart. In the blink of an eye, he reacted. The wings on his back flapped to the side, and his figure made a strange arc in the air, avoiding the direct attack of the three-headed blood dragon. Then, he appeared above the head of the three-headed blood dragon and slapped down with his palm. 9 bone-eroding, soul-shackling chains shot out from his arm and gathered together in the air like a steel arm. Bang! The bone-eroding soul-shackling chains smashed through the middle of the three-headed blood dragon's head, causing blood and brain matter to spurt out. Oh! The three-headed blood dragon's huge body shook violently as it let out a tragic howl. However, Nyetian did not care. The bone-eroding soul, shackling chain, suddenly turned and released a terrifying force. The three-headed blood dragon's head exploded, and blood splattered in the air. Seeing this, the crowd was extremely shocked. Many of their mouths were wide open, but they could not make a sound. They could not believe their eyes. Nyetian was so ferocious. What followed next was an even more unbelievable scene. Nyetian's figure flashed in the air like a ferocious beast, charging left and right. Wherever his figure passed, blood splattered in the air. In the blink of an eye, the three-headed blood dragon on the Luosha field was slaughtered until only one was left. The crowd's eyes were blank, and their hearts were filled with shock. Nyetian's performance was completely beyond their expectations. It was beyond their imagination, and it completely overturned their understanding of martial arts. If they had not seen it with their own eyes, they would not have believed it. The Luosha king looked at the sky above the Luosha field. Its eyes were blank, but its body was trembling. Even a mask on its face was trembling. It had never imagined that Nyetian would be so terrifying. However, at this time, Nyetian's situation was not very good. His whole body was covered in blood, and his body was covered in countless wounds. His face was as pale as a sheet of paper, and only his eyes were as fierce as before, filled with strong, killing intent. Every time he killed a three-headed blood dragon, he had to get close to it, and his body had to bear a terrifying impact. In fact, every time he did this, he was taking a huge risk. This was because when he got close to the three-headed blood dragon, if he did not kill it immediately, he would be killed instantly. Moreover, even if he succeeded every time, the impact on his martial body was unavoidable. This is the last one. Nyetian stood in the air, and his eyes were like those of a ferocious beast. He stared at the three-headed blood dragon not far away and said in a low voice, "Nyetian, this last three-headed blood dragon is not so easy to kill." The Luosha king looked at Nyetian, and his eyes were much calmer. The last three-headed blood dragon was his last chance. If he were to die, he would definitely lose. Roar! At this moment, the three-headed blood dragon roared, and its dark red body rolled and charged towards Nyetian. Nyetian could feel the aura of the three-headed blood dragon, and his eyes narrowed. He felt that the aura of this three-headed blood dragon was different from the other three-headed blood dragons. As for what exactly was different, he couldn't say for sure. Kill! He did not think much, and with a roar, he charged forward. Nyetian, 3 heads. At the next moment, when Nyetian broke through the terrifying aura of the three-headed blood dragon and was less than 100 meters away from it, the Ghost Emperor seemed to have discovered something and roared anxiously. Nyetian frowned, and the 9-bone, eroding soul shackling chains shot out from his body and charged towards the three-headed blood dragon. Wah! 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 In the air, the 9-bone, eroding soul shackling chains gathered into 3 chains, and they charged towards the 3 heads of the three-headed blood dragon. Oh no! When the Rakshasa king saw this scene, his pupils suddenly constricted, and he cried out in horror in his heart. He did not expect Nyetian to see through it. Bang! 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 In the next moment, 3 muffled sounds were heard, and the 3 heads of the three-headed blood dragon exploded, and blood, flesh, and brain matter flew everywhere. This time, the 3 heads of the three-headed blood dragon exploded at the same time. Boom! Then, the huge body of the three-headed blood dragon fell to the ground, and it died tragically. The 9th three-headed blood dragon had died in the hands of Nyetian. The whole place was dead silent. Countless eyes stared at Nyetian, and they trembled in fear. They did not know how to express the shock in their hearts. A rank 1 pseudo-sage had killed 9 three-headed blood dragons. The crowd could not help but wonder if they were dreaming. At this moment, the person who had the most painful expression and the most complicated feelings was undoubtedly the Luosha king. The Rakshasa king's eyes were dull and lifeless. Its figure was frozen in the air, but its body was trembling uncontrollably. He couldn't accept the fact that he had lost the bet with Nyetian. Chapter 31-33. Why must he force you? Floating in midair, Tian let out a long breath, fear still lingering in his heart. That was close. Fortunately, Ghost Emperor had reminded him. Otherwise, he would have been in trouble. He could tell that the ninth three-headed blood dragon was a little strange, but he did not think too much about it. The other three-headed blood dragon's fatal weakness was the middle head, but the last three-headed blood dragon needed to destroy all three heads at the same time. If Tian had only destroyed the middle head, he would have been severely injured if the three-headed blood WYRM had reacted and slapped him with its claws. Even if he didn't die, he would have been severely injured. Fortunately, Ghost Emperor had reminded him in time. At this moment, everyone recovered from the shock and looked at Tian with trembling eyes. They were no longer looking down on him, but shock and fear. This guy is too strong. He's a monster. Not only is he talented, but he is also very observant. If he grows up in the future, he will definitely be an existence that can shock thousands of domains. This silver-haired martial artist is really fierce. The crowd discussed, and their eyes trembled slightly. At the same time, a strange smile appeared on their faces. Tian had killed 9 three-headed blood dragons and won the bet. Next, it was time for the Luo King to fulfill his promise. Tian, I didn't expect you to be so strong. It seems that I have underestimated you. Desolate Ghost looked at Tian and said in a low voice. He could not hide the disappointment on his face. Previously, he had always thought that he was stronger than Tian, but now it seemed that this was not the case. Lord Luo King, you have lost. At this moment, Tian suddenly raised his head. His pale face curled into a faint smile, and he said loudly, "Hand over the demonic infant." The indifferent voice sounded like a clap of thunder, resounding in the Rakshasa King's ears. Although he was wearing a mask, and his expression could not be seen, one could tell from his trembling eyes that his face was ashen. Devil King was silent for a long time before he finally opened his mouth, but his voice was trembling. He didn't know what to say. Tian's lips curled up, his eyebrows raised, and he said with a faint smile, "Your Excellency, Devil King, you're the mighty Devil King. Don't tell me you're going to go back on your word in front of so many people." How could the crowd not hear Tian's sarcasm? They immediately roared with laughter. The variant ghost Rakshasa King is going to suffer a big loss this time. This kid is not a kind person. If he doesn't make the variant ghost Rakshasa King lose a few layers of skin, he will absolutely not stop. Who could be blamed for this? It was the deviant ghost Rakshasa King who started it. That's right. This is what they call the evils we bring upon ourselves are the hardest to bear. Everyone spoke one after another with a playful smile on their faces, as if they were watching a good show. Deviant ghost Rakshasa King's reputation in the 10 Directions Rakshasa Temple was not good. Most people wished that he was dead. Tian, do you really want this king's deviant ghost demonic infant? At this time, the deviant ghost Rakshasa King's eyes trembled. He actually calmed down a lot and asked in a low voice, "Could it be that your Excellency, Devil Rakshasa King, is really going to go back on your word?" Tian laughed and asked with a gloomy face. "You." The deviant ghost Rakshasa King suddenly felt a heavy weight on his chest. He was so suffocated that he could not speak for a moment. "Your Excellency, with your identity, you can be considered my martial arts senior." Then, Tian spoke again and said in a clear voice, "It's not appropriate for the mighty Devil King to go back on his word with a junior." As soon as his words fell, the crowd roared with laughter. The deviant ghost Rakshasa King's body trembled, and his lungs were probably about to explode from anger. "Tian, the grudge between you and me is only because of Yen Wuyu. As long as you let go, this king guarantees that the matter with Yen Wuyu will end here, and this king will definitely not cause trouble for you in the future. Moreover, this king will use other methods to compensate you." After a moment, the deviant ghost Rakshasa King calmed down and looked at Tian with a deep gaze. "Your Excellency, Devil Rakshasa King, how can I believe what you just said to me alone? Why don't you say it for everyone to hear, and let them be witnesses?" Nyetian said directly with a faint smile. You? The deviant ghost Rakshasa King's eyes trembled, and he was so angry that he wanted to vomit blood. He did not expect Nyetian to be so treacherous, leaving him no face at all. However, after thinking it over again, he still repeated what he had just said so that everyone could hear it. Yen Wuyu was really killed by this kid. When the crowd heard the deviant ghost Rakshasa King's words, their eyes trembled violently, and their hearts were filled with shock. The deviant ghost Rakshasa King had already said it so clearly. Of course, they could hear that the grudge between the deviant ghost Rakshasa King and Nyetian was because Nyetian killed Yen Wuyu. Yen Wuyu was the person who refined the deviant ghost demon infant, but he actually died at the hands of Nyetian. Once again, the crowd realized how powerful Nyetian was, and their hearts were filled with shock. I'm sorry. However, just as he finished speaking, Nyetian smiled faintly and said, Your Excellency Rakshasa King, that's a different matter. This matter is between you and me, and has nothing to do with Yen Wuyu. The faint voice was like a slap, loud and clear on the deviant ghost Rakshasa King's face. Stinking brat, you. The deviant ghost Rakshasa King looked at Nyetian, his eyes wide open, and his eyeballs almost popped out. He did not expect that Nyetian would be so treacherous. He wanted him to say it in front of everyone, but he would not let it go. This was clearly forcing him to his death. Nyetian, since the deviant ghost Rakshasa King has already guaranteed that he will not make things difficult for you, change your condition. At this moment, Desolate Ghost, who had been silent all this time, suddenly spoke in a deep voice. The deviant ghost Rakshasa King was the Rakshasa King of the 10 Directions Rakshasa Palace, and was very important to the Rakshasa Palace. As the Rakshasa Devil's son, Desolate Ghost Rakshasa Palace did not want the Rakshasa Palace to lose a Rakshasa King. Your Highness, I am a man of honor. Nyetian looked at Desolate Ghost Rakshasa King, smiled faintly, and said, Since the bet stated the deviant ghost demon infant, I only want the deviant ghost demon infant now. His calm voice revealed a domineering aura that could not be disobeyed. When Desolate Ghost Rakshasa King heard Nyetian's words, he could not help but narrow his eyes. He did not expect the latter to be so resolute. Nyetian already knew how bloody the refining method of the deviant ghost demon infant was. How could he let the deviant ghost Rakshasa King off just like that? Brat, don't force this king. At this moment, the deviant ghost Rakshasa King's eyes suddenly darkened, and with a low roar, a strong killing intent surged from its body. In an instant, everyone felt the killing intent coming towards them, and their eyes could not help but tremble. The deviant ghost Rakshasa King lost the bet. It won't really kill, right? Someone frowned and said with a worried expression, The deviant ghost demon infant is too important to the deviant ghost Rakshasa King. In order to protect the deviant ghost demon infant, the deviant ghost Rakshasa King might really go back on his word and kill. The others' expressions were tense as they said in a deep voice. Everyone knew the importance of the deviant ghost demon infant to the deviant ghost Rakshasa King, and they felt that Nyetian should not force it. Chapter 31-34. Demon Temple Lordy want to force you. What do you do to me? Nyetian's voice was like a clap of thunder that resounded in the Rakshasa King's ears, causing him to tremble uncontrollably. Brat, you're courting death. The next moment, the Demon King's pupils shrank, and the chill intensified. After a low roar, his figure moved, turning into a black light, directly attacking Nyetian. Watch out! The sudden scene made everyone's eyes tremble, and they subconsciously cried out. Who would have thought that the Demon King would really dare to attack Nyetian? It was too shameless. Putting aside the fact that Nyetian was an honored guest of the omnidirectional Rakshasa Temple, the variant ghost Rakshasa King lost the bet and wanted to go back on his word and kill Nyetian. This was a complete disgrace to the omnidirectional Rakshasa Temple. Stop! Up in the sky, Desolate Ghost, Boundless Ghost, suddenly reacted. His eyes trembled, and he growled. His face became stiff. He knew how important Yetian was to the demon temple of 10 directions. He must not die. But this time, it was too late for him to make a move. And with his strength, even if he made a move, he could not stop the Demon King. In an instant, Nyetian was in a moment of life and death. But Nyetian stood still in the sky, his figure motionless, without the slightest panic. He knew that Star Slave had been following him, and he would never let anything happen to him. Star Slave was one of the Demon Temple's people, although Nyetian had not seen this person's true face. But he believed that Star Slave's strength was definitely not below that of the Demon King. Go to hell. At this time, the Demon King's fierce roar came from the sky, and his killing intent was extremely strong. Boom! And at this time, the void high above suddenly trembled, and then a terrifying force pressed down on the void. It was mighty and vigorous, and the surrounding space suddenly shook. Boom! In the next instant, a terrifying force landed, and the aura around the Rakshasa King was shattered layer by layer. Following that, it was as if an invisible giant hand had grabbed it, and it was suspended in the air, unable to move. When everyone saw this scene, their expressions suddenly changed, and they were extremely shocked. The strength of the person who came was too strong, and also very strange. He controlled the variant ghost Rakshasa King with one move. The scene in front of him also caused Nyetian to be stunned. He could not help but frown and said in his heart, "The person who attacked is not the Star Slave." He knew that Star Slave was very strong, but he was definitely not strong enough to restrain the Rakshasa King with one move. In that case, who would suddenly make a move at this time? Rakshasa Hand. At the same time, high up in the sky, desolate ghost, boundless ghost, looked at the Rakshasa King. His eyes trembled, and he exclaimed, "Father is here." It was the Rakshsa's hand that was controlling the Rakshasa King. As for the Rakshasa Hand, it was a martial skill of the Rakshasa Temple Master. Variant Ghost, how dare you make a move on the honored guest that the Temple Master, invited? In the next moment, a low voice sounded in the sky, like thunder resounding in everyone's ears. Temple Master. When everyone heard this voice, their eyes trembled violently. Only then did they realize that the Rakshasa Temple Master had arrived. Temple Master. The variant ghost Rakshasa King was enveloped by the invisible Rakshsa's hand and could not move at all. His eyes were filled with panic, and his voice trembled as he spoke. He never thought that the Rakshasa Temple Master would actually appear in person. However, in the next moment, his eyes flickered with a bright light. With the Rakshasa Temple Master here, he felt that he should be safe. After all, his identity was the Rakshasa King. The Rakshasa Temple Master would not want to lose a Rakshasa King for nothing. Boundless, what's going on? At this moment, the low voice sounded in the sky again. However, only the voice could be heard, and no one could be seen. Desolate ghost, boundless ghost, bowed respectfully, not daring to hide anything. He told the Rakshasa Temple Master everything that had happened, and even told him about Yin Wuyu. As soon as he finished speaking, there was no response from the Rakshasa Temple Master for a long time. The atmosphere at the scene was suffocating. Variant Ghost, do you have anything to say? After a long time, the Rakshasa Temple Master's voice sounded again. It was extremely low, and there was a hint of anger in his voice. Temple Master, I was foolish for a moment. I was wrong. Please forgive me, Temple Master. The variant ghost Rakshasa King quickly admitted his mistake, and his eyes were filled with anxiety. As soon as he finished speaking, the person in the sky once again fell into silence. Everyone's eyes trembled, and they did not even dare to breathe loudly as they waited for the Rakshasa Temple Master to speak. Nyetian, on the other hand, was calm. The corner of his lips curled up into a faint smile. He wanted to see how the Rakshasa Temple Master would handle this. After a while, the Rakshasa Temple Master spoke in a deep voice, hand over the variant ghost demonic infant. Temple Master, The variant ghost Rakshasa King's eyes narrowed, and he was extremely shocked. He did not expect the Rakshasa Temple Master to ask him to hand over the variant ghost demonic infant. I will not repeat my words a second time. Following that, the deep voice sounded again, and it was filled with an extremely threatening intent. The variant ghost, Rakshasa King's eyes trembled violently. One could imagine the fear in his heart. Everyone was stunned. They did not expect the Rakshasa Temple Master to deal with this. Even if the variant ghost Rakshasa King was in the wrong, he was still a Rakshasa King. As for Nyetian, no matter how important the guest was, he was still an outsider. The Rakshasa Temple Master was actually going to destroy a Rakshasa King for Nyetian. This was simply too incomprehensible. Nyetian, you are indeed very important. Desolate, boundless ghost looked at Nyetian, and his heart sank. The Rakshasa Temple Master's decision once again proved Nyetian's importance to the Rakshasa Temple of 10 Directions. Next, although the variant ghost Rakshasa King was extremely unwilling, he still slowly released the variant ghost demonic infant and imprisoned it in a ball of Rakshasa energy. The variant ghost Rakshasa King looked at Nyetian and finally handed over the variant ghost demonic infant. Nyetian took a step forward and took the variant ghost demonic infant. He then released the sword will of the demon gods and imprisoned it again, and then placed it into the furnace of hell. Thank you, Lord Variant Ghost Rakshasa King. Thank you, Lord Temple Master. After doing this, Nyetian smiled faintly, and his face was full of pride. Previously, his heavenly Tao formation had already absorbed Yin Wuyu's variant ghost demonic infant. And now, he had obtained the variant ghost Rakshasa King's variant ghost demonic infant. The variant ghost Rakshasa King's variant ghost demonic infant contained immense power, and it was not something Yin Wuyu could compare to. Nyetian believed that as long as he absorbed the variant ghost demonic infant's power, his strength would definitely be able to break through again. More importantly, after the variant ghost Rakshasa King lost the variant ghost demonic infant, his strength would definitely be greatly weakened, and the threat to Nyetian would be greatly reduced. Deviant Ghost, you disappoint me. At this moment, the deep voice of the Rakshasa Temple Master rang out in the sky once again, and there was a hint of murderous intent in it. Lord Temple Master, The variant ghost Rakshasa King's eyes trembled, and he suddenly realized something. Even his voice became shrill. Father. At the same time, Desolate Ghost Boundless also realized that something was wrong. He frowned and cried out in alarm. The variant ghost Rakshasa King, who has lost the variant ghost demonic infant, has no reason to continue living. Then, the Rakshasa Temple Master's voice rang out again, and his murderous intent was extremely strong. Bang! In the next moment, the void suddenly trembled, and the invisible Rakshasa hand suddenly tightened. The variant ghost Rakshasa King's body suddenly tightened, and it directly exploded into a bloody light in the air. Hiss! Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air at the horrifying scene. Chapter 31-35. Rakshasa Ancestral Ground. No one had expected the Rakshasa Temple Master to directly kill the variant ghost Rakshasa King. After a long while, the Rakshasa field was still dead silent. The atmosphere was suffocating. The Rakshasa King, a rank 9 pseudo-sacred powerhouse, had died just like that. Furthermore, he had died in such a tragic manner. The shock was indescribable. At this moment, Nyetian looked at the Rakshasa Temple leader with a frown. He was shocked and confused. He was already surprised that the Rakshasa Temple leader had asked the Rakshasa King to hand over the demonic infant. He had never expected the Rakshasa Temple leader to kill the demonic infant. Even though the Rakshasa King had lost the demonic infant, he was still a rank 9 pseudo-sacred powerhouse. Furthermore, he was still a Rakshasa King. Killing him just like that was unacceptable. However, it was clear that the Rakshasa Temple leader was extremely ruthless. Desolate Ghost Boundless was also stunned and could not speak for a long time. It was hard to believe that the Rakshasa Temple leader would kill a Rakshasa King so easily. As far as he was concerned, this indirectly proved how important Nyetian was to them. However, He could not think of any other use for Nyetian to the Rakshasa temple other than the stellar essence stones. Mr. Nyetian, what happened just now startled you. I apologize for not being strict enough with my subordinates. At this moment, the Rakshasa temple leader spoke in a low voice. He was apologizing to Nyetian in a humble tone. Everyone's eyes trembled and their faces went blank, as if they were wondering if they had heard wrongly. Who would have thought that with a Rakshasa temple leader's status, he would apologize to Nyetian in front of so many people? Nyetian narrowed his eyes slightly, then smiled faintly and said loudly, "You're too kind, temple leader. It was just a small accident." On the surface, he spoke in a relaxed manner, but his heart suddenly sank. The more polite the Rakshasa temple leader was, the more uneasy he felt. Given his status, there was no need for the Rakshasa temple leader to humble himself. The Rakshasa temple leader's attitude indicated that he had something to ask of Nyetian. "Mr. Nyetian, come with me." Following that, a deep laughter rang out from the void. The aura was extremely strong, and it was filled with an intense pressure. Nyetian's eyes narrowed. He immediately sensed a figure high up in the sky. Clearly, the Rakshasa temple leader had purposely let him see it. He glanced at desolate ghost boundless before his silhouette flickered and he flew towards that figure. Everyone stared blankly at Nyetian's figure, unable to react for a long time. This was the first time they had seen the Rakshasa temple master personally greet someone. They could not help but be curious about Nyetian's identity. That's the direction of the Rakshas's ancestral land. Could it be that father wants to? Up in the sky, Desolate Ghost looked in the direction where Nyetian disappeared. He suddenly thought of something and frowned in shock. He seemed to understand why Nyetian was so important to the Ten Directions Rakshasa temple. In the sky, Nyetian followed closely behind the Rakshasa temple master. However, he only saw an indistinct silhouette in front of him. He wanted to follow, but the silhouette purposely kept a distance from him. Does this Rakshasa temple master want to remain mysterious? Nyetian frowned and thought to himself. Until now, he had never seen the Rakshasa temple master's true appearance. This made him even more curious. However, the Rakshasa temple master did not want to meet him face to face. His silhouette was hidden in the void. After a while, Nyetian felt an evil aura appear in the space around him. It was getting stronger and stronger, causing him to frown uncontrollably. Following that, an even more bizarre scene appeared. In the void, lines of black runes began to appear. At first, there were very few of them. Then, more and more of them appeared. They filled the entire void and emitted an extremely evil aura. "Temple Master, what is this place?" Nyetian felt the pressure from the void. He could not help but frown and ask, "Follow me closely." The Rakshasa temple master did not answer him. Instead, he said in a deep voice. He could not hide the nervousness in his voice. Nyetian was even more confused. He did not say anything more. Instead, he felt the aura of the Rakshasa temple master and followed closely. Then, the black runes in the air became thicker and thicker. It made Nyetian feel like he was about to suffocate. Nyetian felt the black runes and realized that they were similar to the runes of ghosts. However, they were even more evil than the runes of ghosts. They emitted an extremely bloody and evil aura. Hold your breath. The space here is filled with a large amount of Rakshasa temple master. Do not let the Rakshasa temple master enter your martial body. At that moment, the Rakshasa temple master said in a deep voice, Nyetian's eyes froze, and he nodded. He then held his breath and did not dare to be careless. These Rakshasa temple masters contain extremely powerful energy. Unfortunately, you are too weak. Otherwise, you could use the formation of heaven to absorb the Rakshasa temple masters and use them for yourself. The Ghost Emperor's voice said in a deep voice. The Rakshasa temple masters were stronger than the runes of ghosts. They belonged to the same type of energy and were suppressed by the formation of heaven. However, Nyetian was too weak to absorb the Rakshasa temple masters. Soon, Nyetian arrived in a region of chaotic space. An enormous space-time vortex was floating in the sky over his head. Like a wild beast, it constantly unleashed terrifying space-time tempests that shredded and devoured everything that came close to it in the blink of an eye. Such a powerful space-time aura. Nietion looked at the huge space-time vortex and frowned. He was shocked. He had never seen such a powerful space-time vortex. At that moment, he could only use the boundary of the universe to create a space-time shield to resist the powerful pressure of the space-time vortex. Such a terrifying space-time vortex could tear anything within 10,000 meters of it to pieces. "We're here." At that moment, the voice of the Rakshasa temple master rang out. Immediately, Nietion felt a figure appear behind him. He could not help but turn around. At that moment, he did see a figure. However, it was a human figure hidden under a black robe. He did not know what method had been used to make it look blurry. He could not see it clearly. It was obvious that the Rakshasa temple master did not want Nietion to see his true appearance. "Temple master, what is this place?" Nietion became cold and could not help but ask with a frown. He thought that the Rakshasa temple master would not let him enter the space-time vortex. Would he? The space-time vortex was too violent. Even if the Rakshasa temple master approached, he would be instantly torn apart by the space-time storm, let alone Nietion. This is the Rakshasa ancestral grounds. The leader of the Rakshasa temple said in a deep voice. His eyes under the black robe actually flashed strangely for a moment. He seemed to be a little emotional as he said, "The experts of the Rakshasa clan for generations were all buried here and turned into the Rakshasa runes of the ancestral land." Huh? Nietion's eyes narrowed when he heard the Rakshasa temple master's words. It turned out that the Rakshasa runes in the void were formed by the Rakshasa tribe experts burning their blood chi before they died. He did not know why the Rakshasa tribe would do this, but he felt that this action was rather tragic. "Nietion, you really want to see my true appearance, don't you?" The Rakshasa temple master suddenly spoke. The eyes hidden under the black robe flickered again. "Temple master, whether or not you reveal your true appearance is your business. I dare not force you." Nietion was stunned for a moment before he smiled faintly. However, before he could finish his sentence, the Rakshasa temple master lifted the black robe on his body. Chapter 31-36. Pseudo-heavenly blood curse gasp. Nietion looked at the Rakshasa temple leader in front of him and could not help but gasp as he stood rooted to the spot. He could not believe his eyes. The body that appeared in front of him was simply unbelievable. Rather than calling it a body, it was more accurate to call a skeleton. This skeleton was not bony due to its emaciated body, but a real skeleton. His entire body didn't have any flesh or blood. There was only a skeleton standing there. Black runes surged between the bones like flies. Even the face was devoid of flesh and blood, only a skull. It looked extremely strange. Nietion was stunned by the scene in front of him. It took him a long time to react. He gasped and was momentarily speechless. He had never expected the true appearance of the Rakshasa hall master to be like this. He now knew why the Rakshasa temple leader did not show his true appearance to him. It was unimaginable how a person could live in such a skeleton state. "Nietion, you must be very surprised to see my true appearance." At this moment, the Rakshasa temple leader wrapped himself in a black robe and hid his body again. "Lord temple leader, what's going on?" Nietion asked in a deep voice after he calmed down. The Rakshasa temple leader had revealed his true appearance in front of him. It was obvious that the Rakshasa temple leader had a request. "Nietion, to tell you the truth, I asked you to come to the Rakshasa temple of 10 directions because I have a favor to ask of you." The Rakshasa temple leader said in a deep voice. The eyes under the black robe could not help but flicker. "Lord temple leader, please speak." Nietion looked at the Rakshasa temple leader and said directly. He felt strange. The Rakshasa temple leader did not have any eyes. How could his eyes flicker? "Nietion, you've already seen my body," he said. The Rakshasa temple leader said in a deep voice, "The reason why I have become like this is because of the pseudo-heavenly blood curse in the Rakshasa tribe's bloodline power. Pseudo-heavenly blood curse? Nyetion's eyes narrowed slightly. He found it strange. Why would there be a blood curse in the bloodline power? The Rakshasa temple leader turned to Nyetion and said, "The Rakshasa tribe is actually a branch of the Asura tribe. They were originally in the Holy World, but due to internal strife among the Asura tribe, the Rakshasa tribe was defeated by another Asura tribe. Not only did the Asura clan exile the Rakshasa clan to the myriad regions, they even planted a pseudo-heavenly blood curse in their bloodline power. From then on, the Rakshasa race's martial practitioners were born with a non-heavenly blood curse in their bloodline power. Furthermore, the stronger the bloodline power, the stronger the heavenly blood curse. The falsified sky blood curse is an extremely sinister curse technique. The person who is cursed will have their flesh and blood slowly devoured. During this process, the martial artist will suffer unimaginable pain, and in the end, they will become a skeleton. Even if the bloodline power is of a tribe, the heaven, the tribe, the god, and the temple, the god, the body of the Rakshasa temple leader trembled slightly after he finished speaking. Even though his entire body was hidden by the black robes, Nyetion could still sense his anger. The Rakshasa temple leader had become like this under the torture of the pseudo-heavenly blood curse. It was easy to imagine how angry he was. Nyetion's eyebrows furrowed as a shocked expression appeared on his face. What a terrifying blood curse! If he had not seen the body of the Rakshasa temple leader, he would not believe that such a terrifying blood curse existed in the world. Temple leader, who planted the pseudo-heavenly blood curse in the bloodline of the Rakshasa tribe? Nyetion asked after he calmed down. According to the Rakshasa temple leader, the Rakshasa tribe was once a member of the Asura tribe in the Holy World. In that case, the Asura tribe that planted the blood curse in the bloodline of the Rakshasa tribe must be very powerful. It was the pseudo-heavenly Asura tribe, the Rakshasa temple leader replied. He gritted his teeth. Nyetion's eyes narrowed slightly. He did not know much about the Asura tribe, so he did not know who the pseudo-heavenly Asura tribe was. Lord Sect Master, what do you want me to do? Nyetion looked at the sect master of the demon's sect and asked in a deep voice. Nyetion, I do not have much time left in my current state. The Rakshasa temple leader's voice was deep and solemn as he said, I know that I cannot live much longer, but I do not wish for the tragedy of the pseudo-heavenly blood curse to continue. Therefore, I would like to ask for your help to break the pseudo-heavenly blood curse of the Rakshasa tribe. Nyetion's eyes narrowed and his expression turned ugly. He was momentarily speechless. He sympathized with the plight of the Rakshasa tribe. However, his current strength was too weak. He really did not know how to break the pseudo-heavenly blood curse. Lord Temple Master, I think you've got the wrong person. My strength. After thinking for a moment, Nyetion spoke in a deep voice. However, he was interrupted by the Rakshasa temple master. No, the Rakshasa temple leader bellowed. The eyes under the black robe flickered strangely again as he said, You are the future star sky, sacred leader. Only you can help us. Nyetion's eyes narrowed slightly. He did not expect the Rakshasa temple leader to be so agitated. Then, the Rakshasa temple leader fell silent for a while. He calmed down and said, The method to restrain the pseudo-heavenly blood curse is recorded in the Holy Demon Book. However, only the power of stars can activate the Holy Demon Book. Holy Demon Book? Nyetion was stunned. He had no idea what it was. However, he suddenly thought of something and frowned. He asked, The Rakshasa temple wants the star origin stone to activate the Holy Demon Book. Yes, the Rakshasa temple leader did not hide anything and nodded his head. The reason why the 10-direction Rakshasa Palace wanted the star origin stone was to open the Holy Demon Book. However, the Rakshasa temple leader did not want the star origin stone anymore. He already knew that even if he obtained the star origin stone by force, he would not be able to use the power of stars if he could not gain the recognition of the star origin stone. It was just like how Nyetion could only treat the star origin stone as a useless stone after he obtained it in his previous life. If he wanted to activate the Holy Demon Book, He could only rely on Nyetian himself. Nyetian calmed down and asked in a deep voice, "What exactly is the demonic holy book?" If he could activate the holy demon book, he would definitely not reject it. However, he had to first see what the holy demon book was. "My little friend Nyetian, please take a look," the Rakshasa temple leader replied. Then, he waved his hand and many light spots appeared in the void. They instantly formed a huge black book. Chapter 31-37. Holy Demon Book. Nyetian looked at the black Holy Devil book, and his gaze couldn't help but tremble. He sensed an extremely terrifying aura from the Holy Demon book. He sensed it carefully. The aura was as vast as the ocean. It was unpredictable and huge. "My friend Nyetian, this is the Holy Demon book." The leader of the Rakshasa temple pointed at the Holy Demon book and said in a solemn voice, "Leader, the aura of the Holy Demon book is so terrifying," Nyetian said with a frown after he calmed down. "Of course." The black robe of the leader of the Rakshasa palace moved a little, and he seemed to have nodded his head. He said, "The Holy Demon book is the holy book of the Asura clan. It is rumored that it was left behind by the primordial Asura. It records everything about the Asura clan." Primordial Asura? Nyetian was stunned and didn't understand. The primordial Asura was the original Asura tribe. Later on, the Asura tribe split, and there were many branches. The Rakshasa tribe is one of the branches of the Asura tribe, the leader of the Rakshasa temple explained. "Oh," Nyetian nodded and said, "How can I open the Holy Demon book?" He wanted to see what was recorded in the Holy Demon book left behind by the primordial Asura. Although the Holy Demon book has been passed down in the Rakshasa tribe for generations, it has never been opened in the past millions of years. The leader of the Rakshasa temple said, "I have looked through countless ancient books and finally found the way to open the Holy Demon book." In order to open the Holy Demon book, you need two things. One is the power of stars, and the other is the Asura bloodstone. Asura bloodstone? Nyetian went blank for a moment. This was something completely unfamiliar to him. The Asura bloodstone is a unique stone in the Asura sanctuary. It can absorb the saint energy of heaven and earth to form the Asura barrier. It is extremely beneficial to the cultivation of the Asura tribe. The leader of the Rakshasa temple explained briefly and went silent. "Lord Temple Master, where can I find Asura bloodstones?" Nyetian couldn't help asking when the temple master didn't respond. The Asura bloodstone does not exist in the Asura holy region. The Rakshasa temple master was silent for a while before sighing. Nyetian's eyes narrowed and his face froze. If the Myriad domain didn't have the Asura bloodstone, wouldn't it mean that he wouldn't be able to open the Holy Demon book? The leader of the Rakshasa hall remained silent for a long time, before saying, "My friend Nyetian, the reason I've invited you here is not just to borrow the power of the stars. There's something else I need your help with." "What is it?" Nyetian couldn't help but narrow his eyes. This hall master would like to invite little friend Nyetian to represent the Rakshasa tribe and enter the Saint Demon secret zone of the Asura tribe, the Rakshasa temple master said in a deep voice. "Holy Demon mystic realm? What kind of place is that?" Nyetian frowned, a look of surprise on his face. The Saint Demon mystic realm is a forbidden area of the Asura tribe. It opens once every 100,000 years. The Rakshasa temple master's voice deepened. "Although the Asura tribe has been expelled from the Asura holy region, we are still members of the Asura tribe. Therefore, every time the Saint Demon mystic realm opens, the Rakshasa tribe can send people in. This hall master has never entered the Saint Demon mystic realm, but I've heard people mention that there are Asura bloodstones in the Saint Demon mystic realm, and a lot of them." Nyetian instantly understood when he heard this. "Lord Temple Master wants me to enter the Saint Demon mystic realm to retrieve the Asura bloodstones." "Yes." The Rakshasa temple master nodded his head and said, "Although the Saint Demon mystic realm doesn't allow anyone other than the Asura tribe to enter, this hall master can think of a way for Nyetian to disguise himself as someone from the Asura tribe." Nyetian's eyes narrowed slightly. He didn't ask how the Rakshasa temple master could disguise himself as someone from the Asura tribe. Instead, he asked, "Lord Temple Master, how are you so sure that I can retrieve the Azura Bloodstones by entering the Saint Demon Mystic Realm? Nyetian, my young friend, didn't you already prove your strength in the Rakshasa field? The Rakshasa Temple Master laughed and said, furthermore, this Hall Master has already heard about your performance in the Heaven's Choice Final Path. Even the Army Destroyer Star of the Juying Shrine died in your hands. With such strength, you're the only martialist under 10,000 years old in the entire Myriad territory. More importantly, you're someone who possesses the Star Origin Stone. Even if this Hall Master doesn't believe in my own judgment, I should believe in the choice of the Star Origin Stone. When Yetian heard the Rakshasa Temple Master's words, he couldn't help but laugh bitterly. He actually couldn't refute this. Lord Temple Master, I would like to know if I retrieve the Azura Bloodstones for the Rakshasa tribe and help you activate the Saint Demon Book, what benefits will I receive? Following which, Nyetian's lips curled into a smile as he spoke. My friend Nyetian, as long as you help the Rakshasa tribe activate the Saint Demon Book, the Rakshasa tribe will forever remember your kindness. In the future, if you have any use for the Rakshasa tribe, the Ghostland's 10 directions will definitely lead the entire Rakshasa tribe to follow your lead. The Rakshasa Temple Master said in a low voice. However, Nyetian laughed and said, Lord Temple Master, I'm a person who cares more about the most practical benefits. How about this? If I help the Rakshasa tribe activate the Saint Demon Book, I can request 3 things from the 10 Directions Rakshasa Temple. Furthermore, the 10 Directions Rakshasa Temple cannot reject my requests. The Rakshasa Temple Master couldn't help but frown when he heard Nyetian's words. He was momentarily at a loss for words. Rest assured, Lord Temple Master, I won't ask the 10 Directions Rakshasa Temple to do anything too excessive. It will definitely be within your capabilities. Of course, Nyetian knew what the Rakshasa Temple Master was thinking about. All right. The Rakshasa Temple Master nodded his head without hesitation when he heard Nyetian's words. Since that's the case, it's a deal. Nyetian smiled faintly as the corner of his lips curled into a determined smile. Being able to enter the Saint Demon Secret Zone was an extremely good opportunity for him. Since the Saint Demon Secret Zone was the Azura tribe's forbidden area, it meant that the forbidden area was in the sacred world. Next, Nyetian was going to enter the real sacred world. How could he not be excited? Lord Temple Master, if I'm not mistaken, this is the entrance to the Saint Demon Secret Zone, right? At this moment, Nyetian pointed at the space-time whirlpool above his head and asked with a faint smile. The Rakshasa Temple Master was stunned for a moment. He didn't expect Nyetian to be able to see through this. He said, Little friend Nyetian, the Saint Demon Secret Zone is in the Azura Sacred World. It's an extremely dangerous place. After you enter, you must be careful. I know. Nyetian nodded his head and smiled. He asked, Lord Temple Master, when will we enter the Azura Secret Zone? In a month's time. The Rakshasa Temple Master said solemnly, Within this month, the temple supervisor will arrange everything for you. You will be disguised as a Rakshasa tribe cultivator. All right. Nyetian nodded his head with a smile. He didn't expect the Rakshasa Temple supervisor to arrange everything for him. He guessed that the Rakshasa Temple supervisor's invitation to enter the Saint Demon Secret Zone was definitely the Rakshasa Temple supervisor's intention. It had to be said that the Rakshasa Temple supervisor's meticulousness was not inferior to Huayru's. Up until now, the few envoys that Nyetian had met were all monstrous. Chapter 31-38. Initial integration after returning from the Rakshasa ancestral land. Nyetian returned to his courtyard. When he arrived at the courtyard, he suddenly felt an aura lurking in the air. He frowned. Master is looking for you. In the next moment, a deep voice rang out in the void. Star Slave. Nyetian's eyes narrowed, and he immediately realized that the person lurking was Star Slave, who was by the Rakshasa Temple supervisor's side. Previously, Nyetian could not sense Star Slave's presence at all. Now that he could sense it, it was obvious that Star Slave had purposely released his aura. Go! Star Slave's voice sounded again, simple and straightforward. Nyetian was puzzled. His figure immediately moved, following the aura of the star slave, and flew over. After a while, Nyetian arrived in the air. He immediately recognized that it was the place he had been to before, the Rakshasa Temple Supervisor's cultivation ground. Nyetian. At this moment, the air trembled and a deep voice sounded. The Rakshasa Hall's supervisor appeared in front of Nyetian. Temple Supervisor. Nyetian's eyes trembled when he saw the Rakshasa Temple Supervisor again. He could not hide the excitement on his face. He already knew that his trip to the Rakshasa Temple was all arranged by the Rakshasa Temple Supervisor. Even his trip to the Holy Demon Secret Ground was arranged by the Rakshasa Temple Supervisor. Nyetian, looking at your expression, you should already know about the Holy Demon Secret Ground. The Rakshasa Temple Supervisor's eyes flickered and he smiled. Yeah. Nyetian nodded, bowed, and said, "Thank you for your arrangement, Hall Superintendent. I only said a few words in front of the Temple Master. There is no need to thank me." The Rakshasa Temple Supervisor laughed heartily. "I was the one who showed you the way. Whether you can walk out of it or not is up to you. Don't worry, I won't let you down." Nyetian smiled faintly, his face full of confidence. "That's good." The Rakshasa Palace Deacon smiled faintly, and then his eyes flickered with a fiery light. He asked, "I heard that you won the Deviant Ghost Demon Infant of the Deviant Ghost Rakshasa King at the welcoming ceremony." "Yes." Nyetian nodded with excitement in his eyes and said, "I'm going to use the array of heavenly law to absorb the power of the deviant ghosts and demonic infants to break through to a higher realm." Nyetian, you just advanced to the pseudo-sage realm not long ago, right? The Rakshasa Hall Lord frowned and stared at Nyetian. "Yes." Nyetian didn't hide anything and nodded heavily. "It's not necessarily a good thing that your realm has increased by too much. Furthermore, there are two extremely strong forces in your body that are suppressing your martial body. If your realm increases by too much, I'm afraid your martial body will not be able to withstand it and your foundation will be unstable." The Rakshasa Hall Master looked at Nyetian with a heavy gaze, his eyes filled with worry. "Then what should we do?" Nyetian frowned, his face full of worry. Actually, he had already noticed this problem. It was just that he urgently needed to increase his strength, so he could only forcefully increase his strength. The Saint Demon's secret ground would be in the real sacred world. The Azura geniuses there would definitely be more terrifying than the top geniuses of the myriad regions. Therefore, Nyetian had to increase his strength again in the next month. The Saint Demon's secret ground is very important. Next, I will personally help you absorb the power of the deviant ghosts and demonic infants. The Rakshasa Hall Master thought for a moment and continued. The fastest way to stabilize your martial realm is to fight nonstop. Only in battle can a martial artist have a better understanding and control of their own strength. After you absorb the demonic infants, I will find a suitable opponent for you. For the next month, you just need to train with him nonstop here. Yes. Nyetian nodded heavily. Then he took out the deviant ghosts and demonic infants and handed them to the Rakshasa Hall Master. The deviant ghosts and demonic infants, the strongest power of the Rakshasa King. I didn't expect it to fall into your hands. The Rakshasa Hall Master looked at the deviant ghosts and demonic infants in his hands and sighed. Next, he did not waste any time. He began to activate the power of the deviant ghosts and demonic infants and slowly poured it into Nyetian's body. Nyetian sat with his legs crossed. The deviant ghosts and demonic infants turned into streaks of deviant ghost runes and entered his martial body. Boom! In the blink of an eye, Nyetian felt like raging ocean waves were battering madly inside of him, causing him to tremble uncontrollably. However, in the next moment, he activated the Heavenly Tao formation with a thought. Streams of Heavenly Tao energy suppressed the deviant ghost runes and slowly merged into his martial body, turning it into his own strength. A day later, Nyetian stood up. His aura was much stronger than before. After the initial absorption, your strength has increased to the second-order pseudo sacred realm. Not bad. The Rakshasa Hall Master looked at Nyetian and said with a faint smile. In just a day, it was impossible for Nyetian to completely integrate the power of the deviant ghosts and demonic infants. He had only integrated the power of the deviant ghosts and demonic infants initially. Most of the power was trapped in the Heavenly Tao formation. As the Heavenly Tao formation continued to operate, the deviant ghosts and demonic infants would slowly be refined by the Heavenly Tao energy and be completely integrated into Nyetian's martial body. The second-order pseudo-sacred realm is not much compared to before. Nyetian smiled faintly. He was not too satisfied with the improvement of his strength. Nyetian, the improvement of your cultivation is insane. Right now, your martial body is in a tense state that is approaching its limit. Fortunately, you have the support of 900 billion stars in your body. Otherwise, you would have exploded and died. The Rakshasa Hall Master looked at Nyetian and said in a deep voice, I know. Nyetian nodded. He had long felt this. After you're done with the demonic Saint Mystic realm, look for the third star emissary and get him to help you awaken the third star marked dark seal. With the increase in the power of the stars, the pressure on your martial body will not be as great. The Rakshasa Hall Master nodded and said after sensing Nyetian's martial body. All right, Nyetian agreed and asked with a smile. Hall Master, has the opponent you found for me arrived? His strength had just increased to the second-order pseudo-sacred realm, and he was eager to see the changes in his combat strength. He's here. The Rakshasa Hall Master smiled and looked into the void. In the next moment, a figure appeared. It was a familiar face. The Rakshasa Devil's Son, Boundless Ghost. Teacher. The Rakshasa Devil's Son landed in front of the Rakshasa Hall Master. He bowed slightly and greeted respectfully. Your Highness. Nyetian saw the Rakshasa Devil's Son. He did not expect the Rakshasa Hall Master to arrange an opponent for him. After all, the Rakshasa Devil's Son had a high status in the Rakshasa Temple. Now that he was going to be Nyetian's sparring partner, Nyetian was naturally surprised. Boundless, the two of you will be cultivating here for the next month. The Rakshasa Hall Master smiled faintly, and his eyes flickered with a strange light. Chapter 31-39. Black Tortoise Astral Soul Tent directions Rakshasa Hall in an empty space. Two figures stood upright, their auras surging wildly, clashing against the empty space with incomparable sharpness. These two figures were none other than Nyetian and Boundless Desolation Ghost. The two had already stayed in this space for close to a month. Within this month, apart from resting and recovering, they had been constantly battling. At this moment, it was their 30th battle. In the 30 battles, the two had both won and lost. In the early stages, Nyetian had the upper hand, but as time went on, Boundless Desolation Ghost grew stronger. The reason for this was because the environment of the empty space was constantly changing. In the surrounding space, the Rakshasa runes became more and more intense. In this environment filled with Rakshasa runes, Nyetian's strength was suppressed, while Boundless Desolation Ghost strength was stimulated and increased. In the process of the two fighting, Nyetian's martial physique slowly absorbed the Rakshasa runes. This strange power merged with his blood and did not dissipate. This was the method of the Rakshasa Hall, using this method to disguise Nyetian as a Rakshasa cultivator. At this moment, Nyetian's body was filled with Rakshasa runes, causing his aura to be no different from a Rakshasa cultivator. The last move. At this moment, Boundless Desolation Ghost said in a deep voice, his lips curling into a cold smile. All right. Nyetian agreed. His sword aura surged, and his sword intent soared into the sky, incomparably sharp. After so many battles, Nyetian had already adapted to the Rakshasa runes in his body, and the Rakshasa runes in the surrounding space no longer suppressed him. Boom! On the other side, Boundless Desolation Ghost's body shook, and his aura surged out like a raging wave, crashing into the empty space violently. Nyetian could not help but exclaim in surprise when he sensed Boundless Desolation Ghost's aura. He did not expect Boundless Desolation Ghost to have a breakthrough. In an instant, Boundless Desolation Ghost strength broke through from rank 5 pseudo-sacred to rank 6 pseudo-sacred. Be careful. The Boundless Desolate Ghost's aura surged like a rainbow as he spoke in a deep voice. The spear in his hand danced wildly as the renegade god Rakshasa danced wildly. The incomparably berserk spear intent seemed like it could tear everything apart. Not only was Boundless Ghost Desolate powerful, but he was also a spear user with a transcendent divine spear soul. His battle prowess was monstrous. Boom! In the next moment, Desolated Ghost Boundless growled, and the rebel god Rakshasa stabbed out with his spear. The spear was like a dragon, and the rolling spear will turn into a raging wave. The pressure caused the void to tremble. It blasted towards Nyetion. What a strong aura! Nyetion frowned, and his eyes trembled. He was surprised. At this moment, the power that the Boundless Desolate Ghost was bursting forth with was much stronger than before. It seemed like the Boundless Ghost Desolation had hidden his strength in the previous battle. It wasn't until this last move that he unleashed his true strength. If that's the case, then I will risk my life to accompany you. In the next second, Nyetion's lips curled up into a smile. He was not afraid. Instead, his desire to fight intensified. At this moment, his body shook and the sword intent around him reached its peak. Like a volcano eruption, the sword intent gushed into the space. 9 limits of the galaxy, slash of the heavens. Then, the corner of Nyetion's lips twitched as he mumbled. The slash of the heavens slashed out furiously. The shadow of the sword was like a mountain. Bang, bang, bang. In the next second, the two extreme forces collided. The space shook and the violent energy rippled out, wreaking havoc in the space. It was as if the heaven and earth were about to be drowned. Nyetion and the Boundless Desolation Ghost moved at the same time. They retreated thousands of meters away. Just then, a silhouette appeared. He raised his hand, and a boundless amount of energy appeared. It wrapped around the exploding energy in the space. In the blink of an eye, the space returned to silence, as if nothing had happened. Nyetion and the Boundless Desolation Ghost stood still. Both of their mouths were stained with blood. Both of them were injured. The two looked at each other and smiled. This time, they were evenly matched. However, the Boundless Desolation Ghost knew that Nyetion was hiding a lot of his strength. He, on the other hand, was giving it his all. If this was a battle of life and death, he probably wouldn't be Nyetion's opponent. Nyetion, thank you. The Boundless Desolation Ghost stepped forward and squeezed out a smile on his cold face. He was usually serious in speech and manner, but now that he was smiling, it was already unprecedented. I should be the one thanking you. Nyetion smiled and nodded. This month of sparring was a good thing for both of them. Nyetion stabilized his cultivation level, and the Boundless Desolation Ghost broke through. The Holy Demon's secret realm is about to open. At this moment, the Luosha deity stepped forward and said to the Boundless Desolation Ghost, "Desolation Ghost, you go first. I have something to say to Nyetion." "Yes, teacher." The Boundless Desolation Ghost bowed. After bidding farewell to Nyetion, his silhouette flickered as he left. "Lord Deity, do you have any other instructions?" Nyetion smiled as he stared at the Luosha deity. "Nyetion, do you know why I allowed you to enter the Holy Demon's secret realm?" The Luosha deity's gaze turned heavy as he suddenly asked. "I don't know." Nyetion froze and involuntarily shook his head. The reason he entered the Holy Demon's secret realm was to obtain the Azura Bloodstones, and to obtain the Azura Bloodstones, he had to open the Holy Demon Book. But during this process, Nyetion didn't receive any benefits. The Luosha deity was extremely shrewd and wouldn't do meaningless things. Could it be that there's something I need in the Holy Demon's secret realm? In the next instant, Nyetion understood. His eyes flashed with a fiery light as he asked, "Amisha." The Luosha deity nodded as he continued. "According to what I know, there's a forbidden astral soul within the Holy Demon's secret realm that's sealed on a precipice. The reason why I allowed you to enter the holy demon secret realm was because I wanted you to retrieve the forbidden astral soul. Forbidden astral soul. Nietion's eyes narrowed as he was incomparably shocked. He didn't expect that the Luosha deity wanted him to enter the holy demon secret realm for the sake of retrieving the forbidden astral soul. Lord deity, what is the forbidden astral soul in the holy demon secret realm? After a moment, Nietion became cold as he asked in a heavy tone. One of the four divine astral souls. The Luosha deity nodded his head as he replied, Xian Wu astral soul. Xian Wu astral soul. Nietion frowned as a fiery light flashed in his eyes. I will definitely retrieve the Xian Wu astral soul. The Luosha deity nodded his head as he smiled faintly at Nietion. Lord deity, let's go. After that, Nietion became cold as he prepared to leave. Nietion. But at this moment, the Luosha deity called out to Nietion as he suddenly asked, Are you very close to the holy maiden of the Rakshasa sect? We are friends. When the holy maiden was at the end of her path, she saved me before. Nietion froze. He didn't know why the Luosha deity would suddenly ask about the holy maiden of the Rakshasa sect. However, he didn't think too much about it as he replied honestly. Nietion, the holy maiden of the Rakshasa sect has a special status. In the future, you should stay away from her. The Luosha deity frowned as he hesitated for a long time before he spoke in a heavy tone. Huh? Nietion's gaze froze as he couldn't help but ask, why? The Luosha deity's countenance sank. After a few seconds of silence, he replied, This time around, the holy maiden of the Rakshasa sect will also enter the holy demon secret realm. And after she enters, she will not return. Chapter 3140. Holy Demon Secret Realm. Nietion was stunned for a moment and looked at the Rakshasa Palace supervisor in confusion. The Rakshasa Holy Maiden had entered the Holy Demon Mystic Realm and was not coming back. What did this mean? Moreover, he didn't understand why the Rakshasa Palace supervisor would suddenly warn him to stay away from the Rakshasa Saintess. This warning was exactly the same as the Rakshasa Devil Son's warning. Could there be some secret on the Rakshasa Demoness? Nietion, the Rakshasa Saintess is the Rakshasa tribe's offering. She cannot be with anyone else. The Rakshasa temple supervisor frowned and said in a deep voice, Give her. Nietion's eyes narrowed and he looked puzzled. You'll understand once you enter the Saint Demon Secret Realm. You just have to remember, don't get too close to her. The Rakshasa temple custodian nodded slightly, his face a little gloomy. Nietion found it strange, but seeing that the Rakshasa Hall Master did not want to say more, he did not continue to ask. Then, the Rakshasa Palace Lord and Nietion left for the Rakshasa Ancestral Land. By the time the two arrived at the Rakshasa Ancestral Land, the Rakshasa Palace Lord, Desolate, Ghost, Boundless, and the rest had already arrived. Once again arriving at the Rakshasa Ancestral Land, Nietion sensed that the Rakshasa runes in the air no longer suppressed him. In fact, they even stimulated him, causing his energy to surge with excitement. During the battle with Desolate Ghost, he had absorbed a large number of Rakshasa runes. These Rakshasa runes had been specially processed by the Rakshasa Hall, allowing him to perfectly disguise himself as a Rakshasa clan warrior. Her Highness Saintess is indeed here. Nietion's gaze swept across the Rakshasa Temple Master and Desolate Ghost Boundless. Then, he saw Yu Luo, who was not far away, and his heart sank slightly. He did not understand what the Rakshasa Hall Warden meant by the person who presented the gift. However, he had a vague feeling that this trip to the Saint Devil Mystic Realm was definitely not a good thing for Yu Luo. At that moment, there were several tens of young women beside Yu Luo. Their facial features were exquisite, and their appearances were devastatingly beautiful. Furthermore, these women were all very powerful. They were all pseudo-sacred martial artists. With such strength and looks at such a young age, he was definitely a top-notch genius. However, the expressions of these women were not very pleasant. Their expressions were solemn, and their eyes were filled with sorrow. Could these women be the same as Her Highness the Saintess? Nyetian frowned and thought to himself. Just as Nyetian was feeling confused, the Rakshasa Palace master walked over. When he sensed Nyetian's aura, he smiled and said, "Lord Temple Supervisor is truly skilled." Given little friend Nyetian's current aura, even this palace master would treat him as a member of the Rakshasa race. The Rakshasa hall master smiled faintly and did not say anything. Following that, Nyetian noticed several cultivators standing behind the boundless, desolate ghost. They were all dressed in black and wore Rakshasa masks. Judging from their auras, these cultivators were all very young and powerful. They were all pseudo-sages around Tier 3. It was obvious that these people were cultivators who were with Nyetian and Boundless Desolate Ghost, and were preparing to enter the Saint Demon Mystic Land. Little friend Nyetian. The Rakshasa Palace Master pointed at the space-time whirlpool in the sky and said, "This space-time gate leads directly to the Saint Demon Mystic Land. There is an extremely strong age restriction in the Saint Demon Mystic Land. Cultivators over 1,000 years old cannot enter. Next, all of you will enter the Mystic Land. Be careful. The Saint Demon Mystic Land will be open for 3 months. We will meet again in 3 months." As the Rakshasa Palace Master spoke, he started forming strange hand seals. Slowly, a strange space-time force was released from his body. It formed a space-time tunnel in the sky and extended towards a space-time whirlpool. After a while, the space-time tunnel was formed and connected to the space-time whirlpool. "Little friend Nyetian, please." The Rakshasa Palace Master looked at Nyetian and gestured for Nyetian to enter. "Okay." Nyetian nodded slightly. He looked at the space-time whirlpool and stepped in without hesitation. He stepped into the space-time tunnel and disappeared instantly. After seeing Nyetian's figure disappear, the Rakshasa Palace Master looked at Desolate Ghost and said in a deep voice, "Boundless, I'll leave the gifting to you." "Okay." Desolate Ghost nodded. However, his expression was very gloomy and ugly. He turned to look at Yuloa, as though he wanted to say something, but did not say it. Following that, Desolate Ghost and the others entered the space-time tunnel and disappeared. "I hope everything goes smoothly." The Rakshasa Palace Master looked at the space-time whirlpool in the sky and said in a deep voice, "Lord Palace Master, Nyetian will definitely not disappoint us." The Rakshasa Palace Master nodded with a smile. However, a strange look flashed in his eyes. Although he was very confident in Nyetian, there was a small worry in his heart, and that was Yuloa. Yuloa and the others were the gifters. They only hoped that Nyetian would not interfere in this matter. Following that, the Rakshasa Palace Master and the Rakshasa Palace Master did not leave. They were going to wait here for 3 months. At the same time, in the Saint Demon Secret Realm, several figures hovered in the air. They were none other than Nyetian and the others. Is this the Saint Demon Secret Realm? Nyetian looked at the unfamiliar world in front of him. His eyes trembled slightly, and there was an uncontrollable joy in them. At that moment, the world in front of him was not much different from a domain. The biggest difference was that the space was filled with extremely pure saint energy. Nyetian had long known that the fundamental difference between a saint world, a domain, and a plane of existence was the difference in the composition of energy. Previously, he thought that the saint world saint energy should be very ordinary and not much stronger than the sacred soul region that was still growing. But now, he truly experienced how terrifying the saint world was. The space he was currently in was filled with boundless saint energy. It could not be mentioned in the same breath as the sacred soul region. The difference was like the difference between clouds and mud. The saint energy here was so dense that it could directly affect a cultivator's yuan meridians. Just by standing there, Nyetian could feel the restlessness of his 9 yuan meridians. It was like a parched land yearning for the nourishment of rain. And when his yuan meridians revolved, waves of saint energy surged into his martial body like a violent flood. At that moment, Nyetian felt all the pores on his body open up, and he felt an indescribable sense of comfort. The others clearly felt the same way, and their faces were filled with uncontrollable joy. I've broken through. At this time, a voice suddenly rang out. A warrior's face was filled with excitement and joy. Nyetian looked at the cultivator and sensed the latter's aura. He could not help but be shocked. That cultivator really broke through. He had just arrived at the Saint Demon's secret realm, and he had already broken through. It was obvious how much the Saint energy had an impact on a cultivator's martial body. I broke through too. Following that, another excited voice rang out. A cultivator almost jumped up. I broke through too. Following that, another person shouted. Nyetian frowned, and his gaze swept across the crowd. He discovered that everyone's aura had increased significantly. Even the Boundless Desolation Ghost had broken through. It should be pointed out that the Boundless Desolation Ghost had just broken through before coming to the Saint Demon's secret realm. Chapter 31:41. Arrogant cultivators, the sacred world is indeed different from other realms. All of them have broken through. Nyetian looked at the crowd and was shocked. Their martial physiques have never come into contact with such pure saint force before. It's not strange for him to make a breakthrough under the impact of the saint force of the world. The Ghost Emperor's voice sounded out. Yes. Nyetian nodded. His lips twitched and he asked helplessly, why didn't I break through? The dozens of people present, including Desolate Ghost Boundless, all of them broke through in strength. Nyetian was the only one who did not break through. He was still in the second-order pseudo-sage realm. Nyetian found it strange and unacceptable. Although he had a breakthrough not long ago, that was already a month ago, Boundless Ghost had just broken through. How could he break through again under the impact of the Saint Force? I don't know why either. Maybe it's because you have the power of the stars in your body, or maybe you have fused with the seed of the sacred world. Ghost Emperor was also confused and shook his head. Forget it. If I didn't make a breakthrough, then so be it. Making a breakthrough now might not be a good thing for me anyway. The corner of Nyetian's mouth twitched. After a while, everyone calmed down. Their faces were still filled with excitement. But when they noticed that Nyetian did not break through, they could not help but feel strange. Nyetian did not say anything and smiled helplessly. Oomph, a bunch of country bumpkins. At this moment, a low and mocking voice resounded high up in the sky. It was extremely ear-piercing as it resounded through space. Nyetian and the rest were stunned. They looked in the direction of the voice and saw a figure in black standing in the sky. A pair of cold eyes flickered as he stared at them. Nyetian was stunned. He extended his divine sense, and his eyes trembled. He had no idea when the figure in black had appeared. The person's strength surprised him even more. He had already reached the fifth-order pseudo-sage realm. Those who could enter the sacred demon's secret realm had to be under 1,000 years old. To have such strength at such a young age, he was indeed very strong. You must be Rakshasa rebels. What a bunch of bumpkins. This is the first time you've come to the saint's world, the first time you've enjoyed the saint force of the world, and you've broken through. Are you very excited? At this moment, the black-clothed man spoke again. He was extremely disdainful. When the Rakshasa people heard this person's words, their expressions turned ugly, but they did not dare to speak. The Saint Demon's secret realm was only open to Azura clansmen. The black-robed cultivator before him was definitely a member of the Azura race. He was a cultivator from the Holy World. Who are you? Desolate Ghost frowned and asked in a deep voice. Rakshasa traitor, scum of the Shura clan. Do you not have the right to know who I am? That person smiled coldly. His attitude was extremely arrogant. You? One of the cultivators behind the Boundless Ghost could no longer endure it. He roared and took a step forward. Just as he was about to speak, the Boundless Ghost extended his hand and stopped him. Desolate Ghost Boundless did not want to have a conflict with this person, so he decided to bear with it. Are you waiting for us? The Boundless Ghost asked as he raised his head and looked at that person. Rakshasa traitor, you are not that stupid. Come with me. That person said coldly with a Rakshasa smile and raised his eyebrows. The Boundless Ghost frowned. Clearly, he did not like being called a Rakshasa traitor. However, he still led the others over to that person. That person swept his cold gaze over Nyetian, the Boundless Ghost, and the others. Then, his gaze landed on you, Luo, and the others. His eyes revealed undisguised lust and greed. His gaze was like a venomous snake as it roamed around you, Luo, and the others, making them feel very uncomfortable. Nyetian frowned slightly, his expression turning sullen. Ever since this person appeared, he had felt disgusted. This person's current actions were simply challenging the bottom line of Nyetian's tolerance. At this moment, the boundless ghost finally could not endure it anymore. He spoke coldly, practically growling. Have you seen enough? Since when did the Rakshasa traitor become so arrogant? That person exclaimed. He glanced at the boundless ghost, and said coldly, These are the presents that your Rakshasa race is offering us as a tribute. What's wrong with me taking a few more glances? Offering? When Nyatan heard this word, he could not help narrowing his eyes as he understood something. Could it be that the Rakshasa race had prepared the presents for the other Asura race members? If that was really the case, wouldn't you, Luo, and the others be treated as objects and given to others? Thinking of this, Nyetian looked at the black-clad cultivator, his expression turning even more sullen. If you have seen enough, let's go. The boundless ghost frowned as he looked coldly at that person. Clearly, he was suppressing the rage in his heart. What's the rush? I haven't seen enough. That person raised his eyebrows and smiled. With an unbridled expression, he actually took a step forward and approached a woman. With a lewd smile, he said, Not only do I want to see, but I also want to touch. As he spoke, he actually stretched out his hand and grabbed the woman's face. What are you doing? The woman was so frightened that her pretty face froze. She screamed and instinctively retreated. What do you think? That person's smile became even more lewd. His entire body released a formless aura that enveloped the woman, preventing her from moving. Then, his hand fell and touched the woman's pretty face. Bastard! At this moment, a Rakshasa race cultivator finally could not stand it anymore. With a low roar, his entire body's aura surged. He took a step forward and charged at the black-clad cultivator. Impudent! The black-clad cultivator's eyes narrowed. Then, with a low roar, he directly struck out with his palm. Instantly, the void trembled and a violent palm force surged out like a dragon. Bang! A dull sound rang out in the void. The Rakshasa race cultivator who attacked was sent flying, leaving a bloody trail in the air. That person flew thousands of meters away. After he stabilized himself, his entire body was covered in blood. His body swayed, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. When the boundless ghost saw this, he did not expect this person to be so ruthless. What about me? The black-clothed martial artist glanced at the desolate ghost boundless realm and became even more arrogant. He took a step forward and directly grabbed the woman's snow-white wrist. He suddenly exerted force, wanting to pull the woman into his embrace. Whoosh! However, at this moment, there was a sudden sound of something piercing through the void. A sharp sword's essence suddenly appeared, sharp to the extreme. The black-clad cultivator instantly felt danger. He exclaimed in surprise, but it was too late. Chapter 3142. The Darkwing Asura. The sudden scene caused everyone's eyes to tremble, and they were all stunned on the spot. In the next moment, everyone's eyes locked onto Nyetian. The person who had just attacked was none other than Nyetian. Nyetian! Desolated Ghost exclaimed as he looked at Nyetian. His eyes were filled with unconcealable fear. Despite his strength, he did not dare to attack the black-clothed cultivator. Of course, he was not afraid of the black-clothed cultivator. Instead, he was afraid of the Asura clan that the black-clothed cultivator represented. The Rakshasa clan was viewed as a traitor of the Asura clan and was exiled from the Holy World. Their status among all the Asura clans was the lowest. Before entering the Holy Demon Secret Zone, the Rakshasa temple leader had warned Desolated Ghost repeatedly not to have any conflict with the other Asura clans. Because of this, he had endured it time and time again. However, even though he had endured it, Nyetian had not. A few seconds later, the black-clothed cultivator reacted. As if he had gone mad, he let out a hysterical scream, toward the sky like a pig being slaughtered. He did not expect the people of the Rakshasa tribe to attack him and injure him. His eyes were trembling, his body was trembling, and even the blood in his body was trembling. "Ant, you're seeking death." The black-clothed cultivator roared. His eyes were bloodshot, and his murderous intent was thick. Boom! Following that, his body shook, and his aura surged. A pair of dark wings appeared on his back. When they unfolded, they were at least 100 meters long. In an instant, everyone felt a violent aura rushing toward them, causing their hearts to skip a beat. Darkwing Azura. When Desolated Ghost saw the wings on the back of the black-clothed cultivator, his eyes narrowed. His face was filled with shock, and he exclaimed in his heart. This man was from the second strongest Azura clan, the Darkwing Azura clan. Desolated Ghost had never seen the Darkwing Azura before, but he had heard the Rakshasa temple leader mention how powerful the Darkwing Azura was. An ordinary Darkwing Azura martial artist was much stronger than a martial artist of the same rank. They could even challenge a martial artist who was 1 or 2 ranks stronger than them. In other words, even though the Darkwing Azura was only a rank 5 pseudo-sage, his battle prowess was comparable to a rank 6 pseudo-sage, or even a rank 7 pseudo-sage. Nietion looked at the Darkwing Azura with a slight frown, but the corners of his mouth curled into a cold smile. Die! At this moment, the Darkwing Azura let out a low roar. The wings on his back shook violently, causing the void to rumble. He shot forward like an arrow, charging straight at Nietion. Nietion, watch out! When Desolate Ghost and Uluo saw this, their eyes trembled and they cried out in alarm at the same time. Tianling hovered in the air without the slightest hint of fear on his face. Instead, his expression was stern and playful, courting death. In the next moment, the corner of his mouth twitched. He took a step forward, and sword intent surged from his body. The starry sky slash appeared in his hand, and he slashed out. Bam! 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 The sword shadows in the air were incomparably sharp, exploding with terrifying power. They pierced through the layers of Darkwing power and closed in on the Darkwing Azura. The Darkwing Azura suddenly felt a terrifying force coming at him. He frowned, and cold sweat broke out on his forehead. Boom! In the next instant, the Darkwing power around him was directly broken, and a long sword pierced straight at him. Just as the sword was about to reach him, it stopped less than a meter away from him. The sharp sword aura whistled out, leaving several bloody wounds on the Darkwing Azura's body. The Darkwing Azura looked at the sword in front of him with trembling eyes. The fear in his heart was perfectly written on his face. The scene before their eyes caused everyone's eyes to tremble, and they were directly stunned. The Darkwing Azura's aura was so strong, but in front of Nietion, he could not withstand a single blow. Desolate Ghost was dumbfounded. He could not believe the scene in front of him. He had been worried about Nietion just now, but now he realized that the one he should be worried about was the Darkwing Azura. At this moment, his face was covered in cold sweat. Fortunately, Nietion had stopped in time. Otherwise, the power of the sword would have been enough to kill the Darkwing Azura on the spot. They had just arrived at the Holy Demon's secret land. If they had killed the Darkwing Azura, it would have been really troublesome. I am not dead. I'm not dead. The Darkwing Azura, who was still in a state of shock, suddenly felt his thighs heat up, and the smell of urine permeated the air. He had wet his pants. Is this all you've got? You're the real ant. Tianling laughed and withdrew the starry sky slash. He could not be bothered to look at the Darkwing Azura. The Darkwing Azura's eyes flickered as he stared at Nietion, fear filling his eyes. However, he still pretended to be calm and screamed, "Do you know who I am?" Nietion's expression flickered. "One more word, and I'll kill you." Nietion's eyes turned cold, and his entire body was filled with killing intent. The Darkwing Azura felt as if he had fallen into an ice house. The terrifying chill made him despair. He had no doubt that if he said another word, Nietion would really kill him. Nietion narrowed his eyes and said coldly, "Lead the way." The Darkwing Azura gulped and nodded his head like a rattle drum, but he did not dare to say a word. After turning around, he obediently led the way. The Boundless Ghost and the others reacted and looked at Nyetian. Their eyes were trembling, but their faces were filled with worry. Nyetian had taught the Darkwing Azura a lesson and helped the Rakshasa tribe vent their anger. However, what happened next would be very troublesome. "I'm sorry, I couldn't hold it in," Nyetian said with a bitter smile as he came to the Boundless Ghost's side. "It's not your fault." The Boundless Ghost frowned and did not say anything else. He just walked forward. "Your Highness, don't you want to tell me about the Giver?" Nyetian's eyes narrowed as he transmitted his voice. The Boundless Ghost's figure froze. He looked at Nyetian and said Nyetian coldly, "Nyetian, don't interfere with the Giver." "Your Highness, I'm a Rakshasa tribe cultivator now. Can I ask about my tribe?" Nyetian frowned and insisted. He had no relationship with the Rakshasa tribe. However, during the 3 months in the Saint Demon Mystic realm, he would treat himself as a Rakshasa tribe member. Therefore, he had to interfere with the Rakshasa tribe. The Boundless Ghost looked at Nyetian and hesitated for a long time. Finally, he told him about the Giver. A long time ago, the Rakshasa tribe was seen as a traitor of the Azura tribe and was exiled to the myriad regions. However, the exiled Rakshasa tribe could still enter the Saint Demon Mystic realm, the forbidden ground of the Azura tribe. However, the prerequisite was that the Rakshasa tribe had to prepare a tribute to the other Azura tribes every time the holy Demon Mystic realm opened. The so-called Giver was actually a young female prodigy of the Rakshasa tribe as a plaything for the other Azura tribes. Chapter 3143. Phaeton Crown Prince. Nyetian's expression darkened when he heard Boundless Ghost's words. He did not speak for a long time. Boundless Ghost's expression was similarly dark. He swept his gaze across Yuluo and the others and said in a low voice, "Yuluo and the others are all offering gifts. After we meet the other Azura race members, Yuluo and the others will be sent over." "Sent over?" Nyetian frowned. Suppressed anger surged in his eyes. "Sending over?" These 3 words were said very casually. However, the lives of Yuluo and the others would be buried. Yuluo and the others could be said to be the most outstanding female prodigies of the Rakshasa race. Yet, they were actually offered to the other Azura race in such a humiliating manner. This was simply unacceptable. Eyebrows furrowed. Nyetian looked at the Boundless Ghost and asked, "Is this why you warned me to stay away from the Holy Daughter?" "Yes." Boundless Ghost nodded with an extremely ugly expression. "Nyetian, you don't have to care about the offering gifts. Yuluo and the others sacrificed themselves for the Rakshasa race. Their sacrifice is worth something." "Worth something?" Nyetian's gaze darkened as he asked in a cold voice, "Do you think this kind of humiliation is worth something? Have you ever thought about what will happen to the Holy Maiden and the others after they are offered to the other Azura race members? In my opinion, the offering gifts is not the value of the Rakshasa race, but the humiliation." Boundless Ghost's expression turned even uglier when he heard Nyetian's words. He wasn't a fool. How could he not understand what Nyetian was talking about? But what could he do? The offering ceremony had existed for millions of years. All this time, the Rakshasa race had been struggling at death's door in this humiliating manner. If they did not offer gifts, not only would they lose the opportunity to enter the Saint Demon Mystic realm, but they might also be hunted down by the other Azura race members, making it impossible for them to survive in the myriad realms. For the sake of the Rakshasa race's survival, the offering ceremony had to continue. "Nyetian, I know that you are very angry. However, please do not interfere in this matter." Desolate Ghost looked at Nyetian and said solemnly, Yuluo had become the one to offer the gift, and he was similarly grieved. He and Yuluo had grown up together and were like siblings. He had to personally give Yuluo to someone else. This kind of pain was simply heart-wrenching, but he had no choice. He had to do it. Everyone else, including Yuluo, knew what kind of situation they were facing, but they had no choice. Just like this Darkwing Azura in front of her, he was scum. The Rakshas's offering was about to be defiled by such a person. When he thought of this, The boundless ghost Desolate was filled with an explosive rage. However, he was still rational. For the continuation of the Rakshasa race, he had to endure it. I understand. Nyetion's eyes narrowed slightly as he said lightly. Desolate Ghost frowned, but his expression was very ugly, and he was very worried. He knew that a person like Nyetion would never give up. A short while later, under the lead of the Dark Wing Azura, Nyetion and the others arrived high up in the sky. Under their feet was a lake with a circumference of hundreds of thousands of meters. The legendary demonic Saint Lake. Desolate Ghost Boundless looked at the lake below, and his eyes trembled. He was pleasantly surprised. Holy Demon Lake. Nyetion frowned and looked down. He used his divine consciousness to sense it, and his eyes could not help but tremble in shock. A thick mist floated above the Holy Demon Lake, and the mist actually emitted an extremely dense aura of sacred power. In an instant, Nyetion understood that the Holy Demon Lake below was actually condensed from the sacred power of the heavens and earth. The sacred power of the heavens and earth was so dense that it condensed into a lake. One could imagine how massive the sacred power contained within it was. The others were equally shocked, and their eyes were burning with passion. Traders of the Rakshasa race, you have finally arrived. At this moment, a deep voice suddenly rang out in the void, and a figure appeared. Nyetion looked in the direction of the voice and saw a man in white. He had an exquisite face and was more handsome than most women. The most eye-catching thing was that this man in white had a head of crimson hair that was like flames flying in the air, giving off a scorching feeling. At this moment, this man in white was looking at Nyetion and the others with a cold gaze, as though he was high and mighty. The non-heaven Azura race. Desolate Ghost looked at the man in white, and his eyes trembled violently as he roared in his heart. He could tell at a glance that this man in white was someone from the non-heaven Azura race. The most obvious characteristic of someone from the non-heaven Azura race was their crimson hair. The reason why Desolate Ghost was so excited was because the non-heaven Azura race was the greatest enemy of the Rakshasa race. Even a non-heaven blood curse in the Rakshasa race's bloodline power was bestowed upon them by the non-heaven Azura race. The humiliation of the gift-giver was also a rule set by the non-heaven Azura race. It would not be an exaggeration to say that the tragedy of the Rakshasa race was all caused by the non-heaven Azura race. Right now, among all the Azura races, the non-heaven Azura race was the strongest. How could Desolate Ghost not be excited when he saw the greatest enemy of his race? Rakshasa traitor, you have no right to be angry in front of me. At this moment, the white-robed man could sense the rage of the boundless Ghost King. He frowned and laughed coldly. After that, he stretched out his palm and slammed it downwards. A tyrannical force pressed down on the boundless Ghost King, aiming to kill him. Boom! In the void, a blood-colored palm print appeared, rolling like a huge blood-colored wave with an extremely violent aura. Desolate Ghost frowned, and the renegade god Rakshasa appeared in his hand. He slashed out with his spear, and the spear's shadow soared into the sky, causing the void to tremble. Boom! In the next instant, the spear's shadow and the blood-colored palm print collided, and the void rumbled. The blood-colored palm print was extremely strange. It suddenly wrapped around the spear shadow and started spinning like a hurricane. Boom! Bang, bang, bang. Under the pressure of the huge force, the spear's shadow was twisted and shattered in the air. Boom! In the next instant, the blood-colored palm print suddenly became violent and swooped down on Desolate Ghost. Oh no! Nyetion's eyes trembled when he saw this scene, and he exclaimed. The man in white was very strong. He had actually reached the 8th stage pseudo-sage realm. Even Desolate Ghost could not compete with the man in white head-on. Little did he know that the man in white was the prince of the non-heaven Azura race. Face serious Chun. Roar. At this moment of life and death, Nyetion did not hesitate. The dragon chi in his body surged out, and a crimson dragon appeared. It roared at the sky and charged at the blood-colored palm print in the sky. Boom! In the void, The shadow of the dragon was like a mountain. It violently attacked and forcefully shattered the blood-colored palm print. However, the violent force exploded and wreaked havoc in the space. It was still very terrifying. Desolate Ghost figure was sent flying a few hundred meters away. After he stabilized his body, he spat out a mouthful of blood. As for Nyetian, he also took a few steps back, and blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. Chapter 31:44. Saint Devil Grandmaster Hiss. The scene that occurred high up in the sky caused everyone's eyes to tremble, and they all sucked in a breath of cold air. Nobody expected Prince Fei Tian to attack so suddenly, and it was a killing move. He wanted to kill Huang Gue right away. The reason why he killed Huang Gue was because Huang Gue showed his anger in front of him. Prince Fei Tian's overbearingness was insane. "Your Highness, are you all right?" Nyetian steadied himself and shouted at Huang Gue. "I'm fine." Desolate Ghost, Boundless Ghost took a deep breath, and his complexion improved a lot. He nodded and said, "What happened just now was way too dangerous. If it weren't for Nyetian, Huang Gue would be a dead body by now." It was at this moment that Prince Fei Tian, who was hovering in midair, glared at Nyetian with a grim look in his eyes. Killing intent surged out of his body. Nyetian dared to save someone that Fei Tian Chun wanted to kill. This was a huge taboo. Die. In the next moment, Crown Prince Fei Tian let out a low roar. Without saying a single word, he dashed towards Nyetian. "Stop!" Just then, a deep voice was heard. Then, a powerful force appeared. It was extremely strange, as if it had merged with the space around it. It brought with it the power of the heaven and earth as it descended. The Fei Tian Crown Prince's all-out attack disappeared without a trace under the impact of this majestic force. Prince Fei Tian's face darkened. He paused and looked into the sky. In his line of sight, an illusory white-haired old man appeared, his entire body surging with holy light, shining brilliantly. Nyetian frowned and looked at the illusionary old man in shock. The old man's aura was like a mountain. Just by standing there, he created a strong pressure on the space around him. Judging from how the old man easily blocked Prince Fei Tian's attack, his strength was immeasurable. What made Nyetian even more confused was, didn't the Saint Devil Secret Realm only allow cultivators below 1,000 years old to enter? Why would an old man appear out of nowhere? This is a soul body. Just as Nyetian was feeling bewildered, the Ghost Emperor's voice suddenly rang out. It's hard to imagine that there is someone in this world who can condense such a powerful soul body. Soul body. Nyetian was stunned. He didn't understand what the Ghost Emperor meant. Just treat it as a clone. The Ghost Emperor didn't explain too much. Instead, he exclaimed, "This soul body has existed for at least 10 million years, yet it still possesses such terrifying strength. Truly powerful." Nyetian frowned and seemed to understand something. This soul body had probably entered the Saint Demon Mystic realm a long time ago. It was just that it had never left. No wonder the old man's body looked so illusory. It turned out that he was a soul. The appearance of the illusory old man caused the Fei Tian Crown Prince to be extremely wary. He respectfully stood where he was and lowered his head, not daring to speak. At this moment, many other Azura clan cultivators had appeared in the void around them without anyone noticing. All of them looked at the illusory old man with respect, as if they were worshipping a saint. This soul body was the creator of the Saint Demon Secret Realm. He was also the guardian of the Saint Demon Secret Realm. The Azura clan called him the Saint Demon Grandmaster. Every time the Azura clan entered the Saint Demon Secret Realm, they had to be under the watchful eyes of the Saint Demon Grandmaster. What the Azura clan cultivators had to do next was also arranged by the Saint Demon Grandmaster. "Welcome, Saint Demon Grandmaster." At this moment, everyone bowed and shouted solemnly, "Rise." The Saint Demon Grandmaster stood in the sky, like the ruler of heaven and earth. He raised his head slightly. The next moment, he locked his eyes on the Fei Tian Crown Prince. His powerful voice rang out, "Kid from the Azura clan, what is your name?" I am Faetian Crown Prince of the Azura clan, not Sirius Chun. The Faetian Crown Prince bowed deeply and responded with respect. No matter how overbearing and arrogant he wouldn't dare to show it in front of the Saint Demon Grandmaster. Face Sirius Chun. The Saint Demon Grandmaster called out the Faetian Crown Prince's name. He laughed and said, "Compared to the Faetian Crown Prince who came to the Saint Demon's secret realm last time, you are much more talented. I am curious. With your talent, are you qualified to be baptized by the blood of the Saint Demon? I will try my best. I will not disappoint you." The Faetian Crown Prince bowed deeply. He was so excited that his voice was shaking. He didn't expect the Saint Demon Grandmaster to have such high hopes for him. Face Sirius Chun, you are talented. But in the Saint Demon's secret realm, you have to follow my rules. I will forget about what happened just now. But if there is a next time, I will kill you myself. The Saint Demon Grandmaster's face darkened, and he said coldly. The deep voice was filled with an extremely strong sense of threat. In the Saint Demon's secret realm, killing each other was not allowed. Face Sirius Chun had already broken the rules. But the Saint Demon Grandmaster saw that he was talented, so he let him go. Yes. Face Sirius Chun nodded with respect. Then, the Saint Demon Grandmaster looked at Nye Tian and frowned. He seemed confused. He sensed something different from Nye Tian, but he wasn't sure. He was hesitating. Nye Tian was nervous. He was worried that the Saint Demon Grandmaster could tell that he was not from the Shura race. He was afraid that the Saint Demon Grandmaster could tell that he was not from the Shura race. Don't worry. This old man is just a soul. His senses are not that strong. The Ghost King smiled and said, "That's good." Nye Tian let out a sigh of relief and calmed down. After a while, the Saint Demon Grandmaster spoke. He seemed to be interested in Nye Tian. He smiled and asked, "Luo Sha race kid, what is your name?" "My name is Gue Huang Tian." Nye Tian bowed slightly and gave a fake name. Before he came, the Luo Sha Palace supervisor had told him not to use the name Nye Tian. "So you're from the Ghost Wild race. No wonder the Luo Sha Qi inside you is so strong." The Saint Demon Grandmaster smiled and waved his hand, signaling Nye Tian to step back. Nye Tian bowed slightly and retreated to Boundless Ghost's side. By now, all the Shura race people had arrived. The Darkwing Azura had taken advantage of the chaos to return to the Darkwing Azura tribe's camp. Everyone looked at the Saint Demon Grandmaster, waiting for his next arrangement. Huh. At this moment, Nye Tian suddenly sensed a strange, yet familiar aura. He couldn't help but frown, and his expression instantly changed. He abruptly turned around and looked into the void. There, dozens of Darkwing Shuras stood. Among the dozens of faces, there were two that he found very familiar, and they were also looking at Nye Tian from afar. How is this possible? Nye Tian's expression flickered as he saw the two faces in the distance. Chapter 3145. Nye Tian stared at the two familiar faces in the distance. His eyes trembled uncontrollably, and his expression was one of disbelief. He never expected that the people in front of him would be Tang 13 and Tang Yuyu. Why would Tang 13 and Tang Yuyu be here? This was the Holy Realm. This was also the forbidden area of the Azura tribe. Only Azura tribe warriors could enter. Could Tang 13 and Tang Yuyu be from the Azura tribe? This was absolutely impossible. Tang 13 possessed the Ghost Eye. She was definitely from the Tang clan. Although Nye Tian did not know much about Tang Hao's background, he was certain that he was not from the Azura tribe. As for Tang Yuyu, his background had always been a mystery. He came from the Chaotic Abyss and was from the Hidden Soul clan, one of the three wonders of the demonic realm. It was possible that he was from the Azura tribe. However, Tang 13 and Tang Yuyu appearing in the Holy Demon Secret Land at the same time puzzled Nye Tian. The next moment, Nye Tian finally calmed down. He used his divine sense to check, and his expression changed. Tang 13 and Tang Yuyu's strength had reached the pseudo-divine realm. Tang 13 was a 4th-rank pseudo-divine, and Tang Yuyu was a 5th-rank pseudo-divine. Their cultivation bases were even higher than Nye Tian's. How is this possible? Nye Tian's first reaction was that his heart sank. It was impossible. He admitted that Tang 13 was very talented. Among all the people he had met, she was definitely in the top 5, maybe even the top 3. Moreover, Tian believed that Tang 13's future achievements in martial arts would be limitless. The last time they met was at the ancestral land of Qi Wu's clan, when the Jiao-Ing hunting grounds was forbidden. When they parted ways, Tian was looking forward to meeting Tang 13 again. He wanted to see how strong he would be. Now that he saw Tang 13, he could not believe it. The fact that Tang 13 had managed to reach the rank 4 pseudo-sage realm in such a short period of time was simply unbelievable. Could it be? Then, Tian's eyes widened. He thought of a possibility, and his expression froze. If Tang 13's strength increased so quickly, then there was only one possibility. He had entered the Holy Realm a long time ago. That should be the case. The more Tian thought about it, the more certain he was. It wasn't that he was arrogant. It was that he truly knew that Tang 13 was not as talented as he was. Furthermore, Tian had gone through countless life and death situations and borrowed many heaven-defying powers to raise his strength to the Tier 2 pseudo-saint realm. The only possibility for Tang 13 to be stronger than him was that she had entered the saint's world a very long time ago. Cultivating in the holy world was completely different from cultivating in the realms. Just like earlier, when Tian and the others had just entered the Saint Devil Mystic realm, the strength of Boundless Ghost Desolation and the others had directly increased by 1 level. QL11, this was impossible in the realms. Moreover, in the Saint Devil Mystic realm, all the martial artists were young martial artists below the age of 1,000. Even the weakest among them was at least a rank 3 pseudo-sage. In the realms, a pseudo-sage expert below the age of 1,000 was simply unimaginable. Back in the 9 territories, Fenghua had already reached the paramount celestial realm before the age of 10,000. That was already considered the peak of talent. Of course, the 9 territories were the weakest among the myriad territories. The closer to the periphery of the myriad territories, the stronger the martial artists were. For example, the 10 territories, which was at the very edge of the myriad territories, had a martial artist who had reached the pseudo-sage realm before the age of 1,000. This also showed how important the environment of the world was to a martial artist cultivation. Following that, Tian locked his gaze on Tang Yuyu. He immediately sensed an extremely ordinary aura from the latter, causing his eyes to narrow. He had always thought that Tang Yuyu's talent was below Tang 13's. He didn't expect Tang Yuyu's current strength to exceed Tang 13's. He had reached the shocking rank 5 pseudo-sage realm. Perhaps the hidden primordial spirit in Tang Yuyu's body had completely awakened. At that moment, Tang 13 smiled faintly and nodded slightly as a greeting to Tian. Even though Tian's body was currently filled with the aura of Rakshasa runes, Tang 13 could still recognize him at a glance. However, this was clearly not a good time for the two of them to reunite. Tian was very curious about what Tang 13 and Tang Yuyu had experienced. But now, he could only suppress this curiosity in his heart for the time being. Ghost Huang Tian, do you know the 2 Darkwing Azuras? At that moment, the Boundless Ghost sensed that something was wrong with Tian's expression and secretly transmitted his voice to him. He was very cautious. Even if he were to transmit his voice, he would directly call Ghost Huang Tian instead of Tian. I don't know them. I just sensed an unusual aura from them. Tian smiled faintly and responded cleverly. The Boundless Ghost nodded and did not say anything else. At that moment, Tian realized that Tang 13 and Tang Yuyu were in the camp of the Dark Shadow Azura clan. It seemed that Tang 13 and Tang Yuyu were currently in the Darkwing Azura clan. The Darkwing Azura, whose face Tian had left a sword mark on, was standing behind Tang 13 and Tang Yuyu. He looked very respectful. It seemed that Tang 13 and Tang Yuyu had a very high status in the Darkwing Azura clan. Everyone from the 5 Azura clans is here, right? At that moment, the voice of the Grand Master of the Saint Devil clan could be heard from the sky. It was deep and powerful, like thunder, resounding in everyone's ears. As he spoke, he glanced at everyone with a dignified look, as if he had descended from the sky. Nietion's eyes narrowed slightly. He immediately realized that the Azura clans present were divided into 5 groups. Obviously, they were the 5 Azura clans mentioned by the Grandmaster. However, other than the Rakshasa clan, there were hundreds of people from the other 4 Azura clans. Obviously, the Rakshasa clan was a traitor clan, so the number of people who could enter the holy demon secret area was extremely limited. Since everyone is here, let's begin. The Grandmaster's voice was deep and thunderous. Before he could continue, he was interrupted by a voice. Grandmaster, a warrior in black clothes from the Darkwing Azura clan, stepped forward and bowed to the Grandmaster. He did not dare to show any disrespect. Who are you? The Grandmaster frowned. Obviously, he was not happy that someone interrupted him. I'm the prince of the Darkwing Azura clan, Unwoofing. The man in black clothes introduced himself and bowed. He said, Grandmaster, before the holy demon trial begins, I have a request. I would like to ask the Grandmaster to help us, the Darkwing Azura clan. What is it? The Grandmaster frowned and asked in a cold tone. And Yuan, come out, Unwoofing said in a deep voice, his face stern. As soon as he finished speaking, a Darkwing Azura stepped out. He suddenly raised his head, revealing the sword mark on his face. Sword mark? Who did this? Everyone cried out in alarm when they saw the obvious sword mark. Their expressions were extremely horrified. Leaving a sword mark on a warrior's face was a great humiliation to the warrior. Most importantly, it was a Darkwing Azura, which was second only to the non-Sky Azura clan among the 5 Azura clans. Chapter 3146. Above the Saint Devil Lake, everyone could feel the anger of the Saint Devil Grandmaster. Their eyes widened in shock. In the Holy Devil's secret realm, Shura race was forbidden to kill each other. This was a rule set by the Saint Devil Grandmaster. Just now, Prince Fei Tian attacked Baron Ghost and almost killed him. This made the Saint Devil Grand Master furious. If it wasn't for Prince Fei Tian's special identity and talent, the Saint Devil Grandmaster would have killed him already. Now, someone had left a sword mark on the face of a Darkwing Shura. This was an insult to the entire Darkwing Shura race. This could lead to a bloody war between the 2 races. This was something the Saint Devil Grandmaster could not tolerate. At that moment, the Rakshasa people's expressions flickered as they involuntarily turned to look at Nietion. And Yuan was the one who was taught a lesson by Nietion. Old ancestor, I was ordered by His Highness the Crown Prince to receive the Rakshasa clan. However, a warrior from the Rakshasa race did not appreciate it. He suddenly attacked and injured me. Old ancestor, please uphold justice for this junior. As Yuan spoke, his voice was choked with sobs, as though he had been greatly wronged. When the crowd heard Yuan's words, their eyes couldn't help but tremble. After that, their expressions changed, becoming extremely strange. And Yuan was lying when he said he was going to pick up the Rakshasa race. The other Azura clansmen were well aware of his objective. And Yuan was obviously going to pick up the Rakshasa race's giver. The giver from the Rakshasa race had to be given to the other 4 races. Which clan wouldn't want a more talented and beautiful offering lady? And Yuan was there to pick the giver. Who hurt you? Saint Devil Grandmaster heard what Yuan said, and his eyebrows furrowed in anger. He growled like thunder, and his whole body shook as if the sky was going to collapse. It was me. As soon as he finished speaking, a silver-haired figure strode out and spoke in a neither servile nor overbearing manner. It was Nietion. Nietion. When Tang 13 and Tang Yu saw Nietion step out, their eyes widened and they screamed in their hearts. It's that kid. When the others saw Nietion, they couldn't help but cry out in surprise. Just now, Nietion had already appeared once. Furthermore, he had blocked Prince Fei Tian's palm with a single move, shocking everyone present. Who would have thought that he would come out at this time? In the next moment, everyone sensed Nietion's strength, and they were even more shocked. And Yuan had the strength of a 5th-stage pseudo-saint, while Nietion was only a 2nd-stage pseudo-saint martial artist. How could he possibly leave a sword mark on the former's face? It's you, Ghost Huang Tian? The Saint Devil Grandmaster was also surprised to see Nie Tian. He frowned and asked. He was also curious as to how Nie Tian managed to leave a sword mark on Inshuan Yuan's face. Ghost Huang Tian, did you really do that on his face? The Saint Devil Grandmaster calmed down and asked in a cold tone. Yes. Nie Tian nodded and did not say anything else. Why did you do that? The Saint Devil Grandmaster's eyes were cold as he continued to ask. Grandmaster, and Shu and Yuan came to pick up the Rakshasa race. He was here to provoke us. Nie Tian suddenly turned around and stared at Shu and Yuan with sharp eyes. He said, he molested a woman of the Rakshasa race in front of everyone. I, Ghost Huang Tian, am a Rakshasa martial artist. How could I just sit back and do nothing? I'm already being merciful by not killing him. As the voice faded away, everyone was shocked. From the coldness in Nie Tian's eyes, they could clearly feel Nie Tian's anger. Just as everyone had expected, and Shu and Yuan had gone ahead to select the person who would present the gift. Bastard bullsh asterisk T. And Shu and Yuan felt that everyone was looking at him differently, so he shouted in a low voice. Humph! Nie Tian stared at Shu and Yuan and said in a cold tone, and Shu and Yuan, tell me, if you did not go too far, why would I attack you? With the status of the Rakshasa race in the Shura race, what good would I get from attacking you? Upon hearing Nie Tian's words, the look in everyone's eyes flickered. The Rakshasa race had the lowest status among the 5 Shura races. As a member of the Rakshasa race, Nie Tian had no reason to attack Shu and Yuan. It seemed that Shu and Yuan had crossed the line. You! And Shu and Yuan's expression changed. He shouted and pointed at Nie Tian. How would I know why you attacked me? In any case, you're the one who left the sword mark on my face. You're humiliating me and the Darkwing Azura clan. Shut up. Shut up. As soon as Shu and Yuan finished speaking, 2 growls were heard at the same time. One was clear, the other deep. Nie Tian's eyes narrowed. The 2 people who spoke at the same time were the Saint Demon Patriarch and Tang Yuyu. The Saint Demon Patriarch frowned and looked over when he heard the others speak. Tang Yuyu took a step forward and bowed slightly. Progenitor, this is the fault of our Darkwing Azura tribe. On behalf of the Darkwing Azura tribe, I would like to apologize to Ghost Huang Tian and the Rakshasa tribe. With these words, she actually bowed to Nie Tian and the Rakshasa people to express her apology. This scene made everyone's expression darken. They were confused. A member of the Darkwing Shura race was apologizing to the Rakshasa race. This was unheard of. Tang Yuyu, what right do you have to represent the Darkwing Shura race? As soon as Tang Yuyu finished speaking, the Darkwing Crown Prince and Wufeng rebuked coldly. Because I am the elder princess of the Darkwing Shura race. Tang Yuyu's eyes flashed as she stared at Wufeng. Hearing Tang Yuyu's words, Nie Tian's eyes couldn't help but tremble. He was extremely surprised. He never expected Tang Yuyu to be the elder princess of the Darkwing Shura race. Then how did she appear in the chaos abyss of the 3,000 lesser worlds? She must have had a similar experience as Nie Yuro. For some reason, she was abandoned in the chaos abyss. However, being abandoned in the 3,000 lesser world from the sacred world was really strange. Elder princess? And Wufeng looked at Tang Yuyu and said cold, your surname is Tang, who admits that you are the elder princess of the Darkwing Shura race. I think you're a bastard. Tang Yuyu's brows were tightly knitted together as her eyes turned murderous. Clearly, she was extremely furious, but she eventually repressed it. She said coldly, and Wufeng, do you dare say such words in front of father? Enough. And Wufeng wanted to say something else, but he was interrupted by the Saint Demon Patriarch's deep roar. This is the Saint Demon Secret Realm. It is not a place for the Darkwing Shura race to deal with family matters. The Saint Demon Patriarch said in a deep voice, this matter ends here. No one is to mention it again. Yes, and Wufeng was furious, but there was nothing he could do. He could only bow and leave. Tang Yuyu bowed and left as well, but her cold eyes were fixed on Wufeng. Chapter 31:47. A chance, huh? Nie Tian looked at Saint Devil Grandmaster, and his face froze. Let the Rakshasa people come out and let the other four races choose, Saint Devil Grandmaster said coldly. Actually, the Saint Devil Grandmaster was not in charge of the givers. It was just that every time the Saint Devil's secret realm opened, the givers of the Rakshasa people would be divided among the other four races. As time went by, the givers of the Saint Devil Grandmaster were carried out right under his nose. After hearing what Saint Devil Grandmaster said, Nyetian frowned and his face darkened. He already knew about the givers, but he did not expect it to start so soon. He was still thinking about how to deal with the givers and did not expect it to start so soon. At the same time, Desolate Ghost, Boundless Ghost's face darkened as well. Giving the givers to the other four races was the most shameful moment for the Rakshasa people. Uluo and the others did not only look bad, but also hopeless. Their faces were like dead ashes. Once they were chosen by the other four races, they would live in shame for the rest of their lives. They might even become the playthings of others. But they had no right to refuse. They could only accept. This situation was indeed hopeless. After the Saint Devil Grandmaster finished his words, the crowd started to laugh. The other four races looked at the givers of the Rakshasa people with disdain and expectation. They were even whispering. The quality of the givers of the Rakshasa people is not bad. These girls have all reached the false divine level. Not bad indeed. Very talented, and all of them are as pretty as flowers. That gift giver is not bad. Her little face is so pink and tender that water can be squeezed out. I really want to go up and bite a few times. Many voices were heard, and some of them were even using dirty words. Although these people's voices were low, Nyetian could hear them clearly. No! At this moment, he roared in his heart and said in a deep voice, I can't let this happen. At this moment, Nyetian had a voice in his heart. Even if I only have to be a Rakshasa for a month, I cannot let the givers continue. Benefactors of the Rakshasa clan, what are you waiting for? At this moment, Saint Devil Grandmaster saw that no one stood out. His face darkened, and he said cold. The countenances of Uluo and the others changed as they looked at the boundless, desolate ghost. The boundless, desolate ghost had a helpless look on his face. In the end, he steeled his heart and nodded. He had no choice but to do so. Uluo and the others walked out with despair on their faces. Wait! But at this moment, a deep voice suddenly rang out, causing everyone to be taken aback as they looked over. It's that kid again, Gue Huangtian. When the crowd saw the face of the person who spoke, their faces stiffened and they cried out in surprise. The person who suddenly spoke was none other than Nyetian. Ghost Huangtian, what do you want? Saint Devil Grandmaster looked at Nyetian, his face dark and cold. Grandmaster, this time, the Rakshasa clan did not prepare a benefactor. Nyetian turned to look at the Saint Devil Grandmaster and said in a deep voice, What did you say? The Saint Devil Grandmaster was shocked by Nyetian's words, as if he thought he had heard it wrong. I said, the Rakshasa clan did not prepare a benefactor. Nyetian said calmly. As soon as he finished his words, the crowd was in an uproar. The Rakshasa clan did not prepare a benefactor? Is this a joke? This kid is crazy, isn't he? There are dozens of female warriors in the Rakshasa clan. If they are not benefactors, then what are they? I think among the benefactors, there is someone he loves. That's why he does not want to give his benefactor to the four clans. How is that possible? Who does he think he is? If he says there are no benefactors, then there are no benefactors. The crowd was discussing, and they looked at Nyetian with murderous eyes. Ghost Wasteland, the benefactor is a rule set by the 5 Shura clans a long time ago. You're not making things up. The Saint Devil Grandmaster looked at Nyetian and said in a deep voice, I will give you one chance. You can take back what you just said. Grandmaster, I made it clear. I will not take back what I just said. Nyetian raised his head and looked at the Saint Devil Grandmaster. He said, The benefactor is a rule set a long time ago. I think this rule is useless. Useless? The Saint Devil Grandmaster looked at Nyetian, and his eyes shrank. His face darkened. Nyetian's words made the crowd explode again. This kid is crazy. Who does he think he is? It is a rule set by the ancestors of the 5 Shura clans. How can he say it is useless? This guy is an idiot. How can he say such words so casually? I don't know why the Rakshasa race would send someone like this into the Saint Devil's secret realm. Maybe he's a young master. Just because he is talented, he thinks he is so great. He thinks everyone in the world has to listen to him. The crowd was talking, and their eyes were filled with coldness. They wanted to tear Nyetian into pieces. People from Ghost Wasteland were shocked too. They did not know what to do. They did not expect Nyetian to be so overbearing. He just said to the Saint Devil Grand Master that the benefactor would be useless. Ghost Wasteland, do you know what you're talking about? At this moment, Saint Devil Grand Master looked at Nyetian with a gloomy face. He said coldly with a strong pressure. When he first saw Nyetian, he thought that the latter was a talented martial artist. But now, he could not help but wonder if there was something wrong with Nyetian's brain. Grandmaster, I know what I am talking about. Nyetian's face was calm. He looked at the Saint Devil Grandmaster and said, Grandmaster, please tell me, what can I do to invalidate the rule of the giver? Huh? The Saint Devil Grandmaster was shocked. He did not expect Nyetian to ask such a question. Grandmaster, as long as I can invalidate the benefactor rule, I can do anything. Nyetian looked at the Saint Devil Grandmaster and said in a deep voice. His eyes were full of confidence. The Saint Devil Grand Master frowned, and his expression changed. He did not expect a mere second-stage pseudo-saint martial artist to be so calm in front of him. He could tell that Nyetian's calmness at this moment was definitely not an act. This calmness came from his strong confidence in his own power. A person who could be so confident was definitely a warrior with great willpower. What is the Grand Master thinking? At this moment, the crowd saw the Saint Devil Grand Master was silent, as if he was thinking about something. They could not help but ask in a low voice. Was the Saint Devil Grand Master really considering Nyetian's words? Nyetian looked calm. He looked at the Saint Devil Grand Master, waiting for him to speak. Chapter 31:48. Holy Demon Destruction. Saint Devil Grand Master's voice was very calm, but it was like a steel needle piercing everyone's ears. Unbelievable. Saint Devil Grand Master really gave Nyetian a chance. This meant that Saint Devil Grand Master took Nyetian's words seriously. In everyone's eyes, Nyetian was like an idiot. What he said was crazy. How could he take it seriously? Thank you, Grand Master. While everyone was still in shock, Nyetian came back to his senses. He quickly bowed and thanked the Saint Devil Grand Master. Luosha kid, don't thank me just yet. Wait until you do what I told you to do. The Saint Devil Grand Master said in a deep voice. However, he was looking at Nyetian with anticipation in his eyes. Ghost Desolate won't let you down, Patriarch. Nyetian smiled faintly, his eyes brimming with confidence. Although the other four races were not happy about it, they had no choice but to put aside the matter of the giver for now. Saint Devil Grand Master began to explain the Holy Demon Lake. In the next 10 days, everyone would enter the Holy Demon Lake to train. The Holy Demon Lake was filled with powerful Holy Demon Destruction power. This power was very strong, and it would greatly improve the training of warriors. But at the same time, the Holy Demon Destruction power was also very oppressive to warriors. The Holy Demon Lake was divided into 5 levels according to the strength of the Holy Demon Destruction power. 1 level, 10 level, 100 level, 1000 level, and 10 level. Saint Devil Grand Master wanted Nyetian to enter the deepest level of the Holy Demon Lake, the 10 level. Because of the Holy Demon Destruction power, the Holy Demon Lake not only had high requirements for warriors' strength, but it also had high requirements for warriors' talent. From 1 level to 10 level, the requirement for warriors' strength and talent was getting higher and higher. Normally, only warriors who had reached the peak of false holiness and were extremely talented could enter the 10 level. Otherwise, the power of the holy demon's all-annihilation was enough to destroy a martial artist in an instant. After introducing the situation of the Sacred Devil Lake, Saint Devil Grandmaster said, "Remember, do not try to be brave. In the Sacred Devil Lake, choose a suitable place to cultivate. Do not try to challenge the limit of your martial body. It is very dangerous." Yes, everyone replied in unison. Their gazes toward the sacred demon lake involuntarily turned fervent. Saint Devil Grand Master frowned and thought to himself, "This time, I wonder how many people will die in the Saint Devil Lake." Although he had repeatedly warned them not to act recklessly, there would always be people who didn't know what was good for them. They insisted on challenging the limits of the martial body and eventually died under the pressure of the Saint Fiend annihilation. "Now, you can enter the Divine Devil Lake." Saint Devil Grand Master glanced at everyone and said in a deep voice. As soon as he finished speaking, someone could no longer hold back and leaped into the demonic Saint Lake. Plop, thump, splash. Numerous figures leaped into the demonic Saint Lake. In the blink of an eye, more than half of the people present were gone. Your Highness, Saintess, let us enter as well." Nyetian saw that it was about time, so he looked at Desolate Ghost and Yuluo and said, "Yes." Desolate Ghost looked at Nyetian. He wanted to say something, but he did not. Just now, Nyetian had done what he wanted to do, but did not dare to do. How could he feel good about watching his own clansmen being picked up like objects? Although Nyetian's actions seemed reckless and even a little stupid, at least it gave the Rakshasa people a glimmer of hope. Then, Nyetian and the rest did not hesitate and leaped into the demonic Saint Lake. The instant he entered the demonic Sage Lake, Nyetian immediately felt an immense pressure pressing down on him from all directions. It was extremely terrifying and made him feel as though he couldn't breathe. This pressure is so strong. At the side, a few girls could not withstand the pressure. Their faces turned red, and their bodies looked like they were about to explode. Following that, bloody scars appeared on the faces of these girls, looking extremely horrifying. "Hurry up and let them out." Nyetian used his spiritual sense and sensed that the blood chi in the bodies of these girls was slowly turning violet. He immediately realized that something was wrong. Yes, Desolate Ghost also sensed the abnormality. With a wave of his hand, he sent the girls out of the demonic Saint Lake. At that moment, a tragic cry sounded not far away. Following that, a cultivator's body exploded, turning into a pool of blood. When the Rakshasa cultivators saw this, their eyes widened in shock. It was obvious that the cultivator who exploded had been forcefully crushed by the demonic saint power of the demonic Saint Lake. Luckily, Nyetian and Desolate Ghost had reacted in time. Otherwise, the girls of the Rakshasa tribe would have exploded like that person. Listen carefully. Do not force yourself. If you feel the blood chi in your body rising or becoming unstable, stop immediately and head to the surface of the lake. Do you understand? After experiencing what happened earlier, the boundless Desolate Ghost felt a lingering fear in his heart. He swept his gaze over everyone and said in a deep voice, since he was the one who had brought the Rakshasa tribe to the demonic Saint Mystic ground, he would bring everyone back safely. Yes, the others nodded their heads in agreement. This concerned their lives. How could they treat it lightly? Nyetian. Following this, Desolate Ghost looked at Nyetian and was about to say something, but Nyetian raised his hand to stop him. "I'll be fine." Nyetian knew what Desolate Ghost was going to say. He smiled and said, "I've already passed the 3 trials. The demonic saint power is nothing to me." Desolate Ghost frowned and did not say anything else. He, the Rakshasa demon's son, should have been the one to abolish the offerings. However, Nyetian, an outsider, had been the one to do it. He did not feel good about it. This made him feel a strong sense of guilt towards Nyetian. Nyetian looked at Desolate Ghost and smiled faintly. Following this, he headed to the deeper parts of the lake. Although he said it casually, he was not at all relaxed in his heart. Those who could be chosen to enter the demonic Saint Mystic ground were all talented cultivators. Among the Azura tribes, they were rare existences. However, there was actually someone who was unable to endure at the moment he entered the Sage Demon Lake and was only at the level of 1 destruction, and his body exploded. The pressure of the demonic saint power was unimaginable. However, Nyetian wanted to enter the deepest part of the demonic Saint Lake, the realm of all annihilation. The pressure in his heart was naturally immense. Most importantly, he had no way out. He had to enter the realm of all annihilation. If he could not enter, Yulaw and the others would really become the offerings. Seeing Nietion's figure, the boundless ghost hastily followed after him. The others followed suit. At the same time, above the demonic Saint Lake, Saint Devil Grand Master waved his hand in the air, and an image appeared. It was a reflection of the demonic Saint Lake. I'm looking forward to seeing how many people will be able to enter the realm of destruction this time. Saint Devil Grand Master stared at the image with a smile on his face. The demonic Saint Blood had been waiting for its master for too long. Chapter 3149. The Realm of Destruction in the Demon Lake. Nietion was moving very fast. He was like a fish swimming towards the deeper part of the lake. By now, he had reached the second level of the Demon Lake, the Destruction Realm. He could clearly feel that the oppressive force in the surrounding space had become extremely strong. At the moment, there were less than 10 people around him. Do any of you feel uncomfortable? Desolate Ghost felt that he was about to enter the third level of the Demon Lake. He turned around and asked the people behind him, "Your Highness, I can't do it anymore. I can only stay here with you." Someone could not take it anymore and said with a pale face, "I can't do it either. Blood is a bit unstable." Another person said, "Okay." Desolate Ghost looked at the two people and said, "Go back to the upper part of the water and train here." "Yes." The two agreed and turned around to go to the upper part of the water. Nietion, however, didn't think too much about it and continued to head deeper into the water. Very quickly, he felt that the pressure between the water layers had clearly become stronger, and the corners of his mouth curled up slightly. He knew that he had reached the third level, the Destruction Realm. After entering the Destruction Realm, Nietion suddenly felt that the pressure in his body was even more terrifying. However, his martial body was strong. The pressure in the Destruction Realm was not enough to threaten him, but the others did not have it so easy. Beside Nietion, except for Desolate Ghost and Yuluo, the other people's expressions changed. Nietion turned around and said, "This is the 100 Extermination Realm. You can stop here. Don't go any further." "Yes." The others nodded and sat down cross-legged, entering the state of training. Their flushed faces looked better. "Let's continue." Nietion smiled and said. He felt that there was not much change in Desolate Ghost and Yuluo's aura. The two agreed and continued deeper into the water. At the same time, in the sky above the Demon Lake. Not bad. Saint Devil Grand Master looked at the image in front of him and couldn't help but twitch his mouth. He smiled with satisfaction. At this time, in the image, there were several dots of light that had entered the fourth level, the realm of Thousand Annihilation. There were also dozens of light dots that had entered the third level, the realm of 100 Annihilation. In the illusory scene, every point of view represented a martial artist. Saint Devil Grand Master was satisfied with their performance. He hadn't expected that so many people would be able to enter the 100 Annihilation and 1000 Annihilation realms. Saint Devil Grand Ancestor couldn't help but smile and say, "Perhaps someone can really enter the realm of annihilation." Just as he finished speaking, he suddenly saw a spot of light on the illusory image approaching the fifth level, the realm of annihilation. Saint Devil Grand Master was shocked by what he had just seen. In the next moment, the speck of light flickered and entered the realm of infinite destruction. "We are in." Saint Devil Grand Master was so excited that he almost shouted. If it weren't for the fact that there were some people from the 5 Azure clans around, he would have laughed hysterically. These people couldn't even handle the realm of annihilation. They just entered the sacred Devil Lake, and they came out right away. In other words, they were the weakest among the 5 Azure clans. Saint Devil Grand Master stared at the illusory scene with his eyes lit up. His body was shaking slightly. After a while, Saint Devil Grand Master calmed down and said to himself, "This warrior who entered the realm of annihilation should be the prince of Fei Tianshura clan." The pressure of the sacred Devil Annihilation was very strong. If one didn't have super strength and talent, he wouldn't be able to withstand it. Saint Devil Grand Master had already sensed that among all the warriors, the prince of Fei Tian Chun, was the strongest. The one he had high hopes for was also Fei Tianxun. As for Nie Tian, he just mentioned it on a whim. After all, Nie Tian was too weak. He was only a rank 2 pseudo-holiness. If Nie Tian had the same cultivation as Fei Tianxun, the Saint Devil Grandmaster thought that he could enter the realm of annihilation. The reason why he made a promise to Nie Tian that he would consider the possibility of the gift being nullified after entering the realm of annihilation was because he was hoping for luck. What if Nie Tian really was a peerless genius? But now, he was more interested in Fei Tianxun. Kid from Fei Tianxura clan, do you have a chance of becoming the sacred devil bloodlord? Saint Devil Grand Master looked at the light spot in the realm of annihilation. His eyes were shaking slightly, and he was very excited. But then, the light in his eyes slowly dimmed, because the light spot stopped not long after. Obviously, it couldn't bear the pressure of the realm of annihilation anymore. Still a little bit more. Saint Devil Grand Master sighed, his face full of regret. If this light spot could enter the bottom of the realm of annihilation, it would mean that he could really become the sacred devil bloodlord. But now it was basically impossible. Saint Devil Grand Master didn't even bother to watch anymore, because he didn't think anyone else would enter the realm of annihilation. In the blink of an eye, half an hour had passed. The spots of light on the illusory image had basically all stopped. This meant that most of the warriors had found their positions and started to cultivate steadily. At this moment, Saint Devil Grand Master found that a few light spots were still moving towards the deeper part of the water. These light spots weren't fast, but they were very stable. They didn't flicker at all. This meant that the blood chi of these light spots was very stable. The sacred devil blood, Lord's annihilation, hadn't caused any fatal pressure on them yet. They're almost at the realm of annihilation. Then, Saint Devil Grand Master stared at the light spots. His eyes lit up again, and he didn't even blink. After a while, a few light spots stopped, but there were still 2 light spots that were still moving towards the realm of annihilation. And these 2 light spots were approaching each other. Do they know each other? Saint Devil Grand Master frowned and asked in confusion. But then his eyes suddenly flashed, and he was shocked to the extreme. His whole face froze. Those 2 light spots had entered the realm of annihilation at the same time. Another 2 people had entered the realm of annihilation. This time, there were 3 people who had entered the realm of annihilation. How could Saint Devil Grand Master not be surprised? Some people down below saw Saint Devil Grand Master's excitement, but they were confused. They didn't know what was going on. At the same time, in the 5th level of Saint Devil Lake, the realm of annihilation, a figure appeared, slowly and steadily moving down. This figure was none other than Nie Tian. He had successfully entered the realm of annihilation. However, his current expression was extremely ugly. His facial features were almost distorted under the immense pressure. But the blood chi inside him was very stable. This undoubtedly meant that he still had the potential to go deeper than the realm of annihilation. With Nie Tian's strength, he could enter the realm of annihilation thanks to the formation of Heavenly Path inside him. Without the formation of Heavenly Path, he wouldn't have been able to come here. At this moment, Nie Tian slowed down. He looked not far away and saw a figure swimming towards him. This figure was none other than Tang 13. Chapter 3150. Absolute Ghost Eyes. As Nie Tian watched Tang 13 approach, his lips curled into a faint smile. Tang 13 being able to enter the realm of annihilation was within his expectations. Tang 13's martial talent was shocking. It would be strange if she couldn't enter the realm of annihilation. Desolate Ghost, nice new name. Tang 13 soon arrived at Nie Tian's side, a faint smile on her face. The first thing she said was actually a joke. Nie Tian smiled, a gratified expression on his face. Not bad. After so long, Tang 13 didn't change much. This made Nie Tian feel good. Tang 13, are you okay? Then, Nie Tian noticed that Tang 13's eyes were a little strange. They were dark like the abyss, and he couldn't help but feel nervous. It was obvious that Tang 13 was using the ghost eyes to resist the pressure of the demonic annihilation. The demonic annihilation inside the demonic sage lake was not a joke. If the martial body couldn't handle the pressure, it would explode and die. Nyetian was afraid that Tang 13 would force herself. That would be very dangerous. I'm fine, Tang 13 smiled. Don't worry, I won't force myself. That's good. Nyetian sensed Tang 13's martial body. Her energy was stable, and her yuan meridians were calm. Only then did he relax. Nyetian, how did you become a member of the Rakshasa tribe? Tang 13 looked at Nyetian suspiciously and asked with a smile. Nyetian didn't hide anything. He briefly explained how he entered the Decimo territory. I see. After hearing his words, Tang 13 couldn't help but smile. Her eyes glittered with a strange light as she looked at Nyetian and said, It seems that you've been through a lot during this period of time. Aren't you the same? Nyetian smiled faintly and said, Tell me about yourself. Seeing Tang 13 again, Nyetian had many questions in his mind. Tang 13 and Tang Yuyu had become the Darkwing Azura, and Tang Yuyu had become the eldest princess of the Darkwing Azura tribe. Also, Nyetian could feel that Tang 13's ghost had evolved to a level that he could never have imagined. Back then, Nyetian had thought that the Blood Moon ghost was the ultimate form of the Ghost Eye. But now, it seemed like that wasn't the case. Tang 13's ghost had far surpassed the Blood Moon Ghost Eye. At the very least, it had surpassed the Blood Moon Ghost Eyes that Nyetian had expected. Tang 13 laughed and began to talk about her own matters. It turned out that after Tang 13 and Tang Yuyu parted ways with Nyetian in the forbidden land of nine-headed infants, they went to another domain. At that time, Tang 13 and Tang Yuyu already had some clues about Tang Yuyu's past. Later on, the two of them entered a secret realm and accidentally attracted the attention of the Darkwing Azura clan. It was the Darkwing Azura clan that brought the two of them to the sacred world. After Tang 13 finished, her lips twitched. She said, At that time, we only wanted to solve the mystery of Tang Yuyu's past. We did not expect to accidentally enter the sacred world. We also did not expect Tang Yuyu to be the eldest princess of the Darkwing Azura tribe. This is indeed unexpected. Nyetian laughed and said, This can be considered a blessing in disguise for you guys. Tang 13 and Tang Yuyu entering the sacred world seemed to be the right choice. If they did not enter the sacred world, the two of them would not have reached their current strength. Tang 13 and Nyetian were the same. They were not from the Azura tribe. They used some kind of disguise. He entered the Saint Demon's secret realm for Tang Yuyu. Nyetian, we have entered the realm of annihilation. There is no need to continue. Let's cultivate here. At this time, Tang 13 looked at Nyetian and said calmly, Saint Demon Grandmaster's request to Nyetian was to enter the realm of annihilation. But now, Nyetian and Tang 13 were already in the realm of annihilation. There was no need to continue. Moreover, with their strength, entering the realm of annihilation was already the limit of a martial body. Tang 13 could already feel the blood in her body stirring. If they continued to go deeper, they would be in danger. It should be known that other than Nyetian and Tang 13, Desolate Ghost, Yu Luo, Tang Yuyu, and the others had not entered the realm of annihilation. One could imagine how strong the pressure of the realm of annihilation was. Looking at Tang 13, Nyetian frowned and said in a low voice, Tang 13, do you sense a strange power in the water down there? Under the immense pressure, his expression was extremely unsightly. At this time, he had a very strange feeling. Under the effect of the holy demon annihilation, the backlash of the god-fiend body in his body seemed to be weakening. It was this feeling that made him want to go deeper into the water. Although the pressure on his martial body was already very strong, with the help of the formation of heavenly Tao, his blood was very stable. Yes, I felt it too. Tang 13 paused for a second and said, My ghost, I sense some aura. It seems that at the bottom of the water, there is a huge whirlpool of the holy demon annihilation. The holy demon annihilation in the entire water is released by that whirlpool. The corner of Nyetian's mouth curled up, and a strange smile appeared on his face. He had the same feeling. He guessed that at the bottom of the realm of annihilation, there must be the source of the holy demon annihilation. At this time, he had an idea. Perhaps if he could get close to the source of the holy demon annihilation, the backlash of the god-fiend body in his body might be resolved. He could feel that the holy demon annihilation had a strong weakening effect on the backlash of the god-fiend body. If he could get close to the source of the holy demon annihilation, even if he could not completely resolve the backlash of the god-fiend body, it would definitely be weakened. This was very beneficial to him. The biggest problem that Niet Tian was facing now was that the power of the formation of heavenly Tao and the backlash of the god-fiend body was too strong. It was too much of a burden on his martial body. If he could weaken the backlash of the god-fiend body, the power of the formation of heavenly Tao would naturally weaken as well. This would make it much easier for his martial body. Tang 13, can you still go deeper? Niet Tian looked at Tang 13 and asked in a low voice. Yes. The corner of Tang 13's mouth twitched as an eerie smile appeared on her face. Then, something strange happened. His pair of ghostly eyes slowly changed. His eyes were blood-red and dark, extremely terrifying. Niet Tian's gaze froze when he saw this. At this moment, Tang 13's ghost eye was not displaying the power of the Blood Moon Ghost Eye, but an even stronger power. This is the absolute Ghost Eye. Tang 13 looked at Niet Tian's shocked expression and knew what he was thinking. She faintly smiled. Absolute Ghost Eye. Niet Tian frowned. His expression was even more shocked. He was right. The Blood Moon Ghost Eye was not the ultimate form of the Ghost Eye. The Ghost Eye was an even more terrifying form. Chapter 31:51. Holy Demon Destruction. Boom. Suddenly, a terrifying tremor came from the Holy Devil Lake. The terrifying ripples were like the roars of a ferocious beast, letting out low rumbling sounds. Niet Tian could feel the enormous force coming at him, causing him to involuntarily narrow his eyes. At this moment, he suddenly felt that the blood in his body had gone berserk and was surging violently. His entire martial body was filled with a terrifying feeling of being torn apart, as if it was about to explode. Crap! Niet Tian's expression flickered. He had never imagined that something like this would happen. His blood qi was supposed to be stable. Why did it suddenly go berserk? And how did that sudden and terrifying tremor happen? Niet Tian. At this moment, Tang 13 had the same reaction. Her eyes were shaking as she shouted out Niet Tian's name. Niet Tian froze. He could feel the blood qi in Tang 13's body going berserk. At the same time, all the warriors in the Holy Demon Lake had the same reaction. What happened? Why did my blood qi suddenly go berserk? Could it be that the Holy Demon Destruction in the Holy Demon Lake suddenly became stronger? That's impossible. Am I going to die here? The crowd of martial artists was shocked, and their faces were pale. But then, the terrifying ripples went through the water, and the entire Holy Demon Lake calmed down. Meanwhile, all the martial artists' berserk blood qi began to slowly calm down. What's going on? Niet Tian couldn't help but furrow his brow. Just now, he was ready to use his heavenly energy to suppress the berserk blood qi. But he did not expect the berserk blood qi to return to normal. So weird. Tang 13 was confused as well. She did not know what was going on. At the same time, above the Holy Demon Lake, Saint Devil Grand Master looked at the Holy Demon Lake. His face was frozen. His lips were trembling, but he could not say a word. The warriors on the ground saw the expression of the Saint Devil Grand Master and were confused. What is wrong with the Grand Master? He seems very excited. Earlier, the Holy Demon Lake shook a little. Could something have happened inside the lake? At most, someone will die inside. What else can happen? The crowd was discussing, not knowing what had happened to make the Grand Master react like this. Oh my God! At this moment, Saint Devil Grand Master, who was still in shock, finally reacted. His eyes were trembling with excitement, and even hot tears were rolling down his cheeks. He never expected that the Saint Fiend exterminating seal, which had been dormant for countless years, would actually have a reaction. The strange movement of the demonic Saint Lake just now was caused by the demonic Saint Annihilation Seal. The exterminating Holy Demon Seal was a powerful seal hidden deep within the Holy Demon Lake. It contained boundless, exterminating Holy Demon energy. The entire demonic lake's demonic annihilation power came from the demonic annihilation seal. It was precisely because the holy demonic exterminating seal was at the bottom of the lake that the holy demonic exterminating power grew stronger from the surface to the bottom. Saint Devil Grandmaster did not expect that someone would trigger the Saint Devil Extermination Seal. Oh my God, you finally opened your eyes. At this moment, Saint Devil Grandmaster could not control his excitement anymore. He started laughing crazily, like a madman. Seeing this, the crowd was even more confused. They did not know what had happened to Saint Devil Grandmaster. The Saint Devil Exterminating Seal was triggered, which meant that the Saint Devil Exterminating power had been found. The person who could absorb the Saint Devil Exterminating power was the person who could merge with the Saint Devil Blood, the Saint Devil Blood Master. The Saint Devil Blood had been waiting for its true master for far too long. At this moment, someone had triggered the Saint Devil Exterminating Seal. How could Saint Devil Grandmaster not be excited? Who is the one who triggered the Saint Devil Exterminating Seal? After a long time, Saint Devil Grandmaster finally calmed down. He stared at the image of the Saint Devil Soul, focusing on the 3 light spots in the 5th level of the exterminating plane. The person who triggered the Saint Devil Exterminating Seal must be one of the 3 who entered the exterminating plane. Saint Devil Grandmaster was almost certain that the first person to enter the exterminating plane was Fei Tian Shun. However, he did not believe that Fei Tian Shun triggered the Saint Devil Exterminating Seal. After all, Fei Tian Shun stopped at a place far away from the bottom of the Holy Devil Lake. Then, Saint Devil Grandmaster's eyes focused on the edge of the 5th level. There were 2 light spots that were almost touching each other. The person who triggered the Saint Devil Exterminating Seal should be one of them. Saint Devil Grandmaster frowned and thought to himself. These 2 light spots had been there for a long time. Saint Devil Grandmaster guessed that these 2 people knew each other. Their chi and blood were very stable, which meant they had great potential to enter the bottom of the Holy Devil Lake. However, Saint Devil Grandmaster could not confirm which one of them was the one who triggered the Saint Devil Exterminating Seal. Don't worry. After 10 days, everyone will come out of the Saint Devil Lake. Then we will see. Saint Devil Grandmaster grinned and murmured. At this moment, his eyes suddenly froze. It turned out that in the illusory image, the 2 dots of light had actually started to move and were heading deeper into the water. Saint Devil Grandmaster's eyes lit up. He was looking forward to it. At the same time, in the exterminating plane of the Holy Devil Lake, Nietian and Tang 13 moved, going deeper into the water. The Holy Devil Lake had calmed down. Everything was normal, as if nothing had happened. After a while, Nietian and Tang 13 arrived at the middle of the exterminating plane. Nietian's face looked even worse. His martial body was suffering unimaginable pain under the terrifying pressure. However, the great formation of heaven had stabilized Nietian's chi and blood. At this moment, Nietian was confused. He looked at Tang 13 strangely and said, "Tang 13, why is your chi and blood so stable all of a sudden?" When they were in the shallow water of the exterminating plane, Tang 13 almost could not hold it anymore. But now that they were in the middle water, Tang 13's chi and blood were even more stable. This made Nietian feel strange. He could not understand. Even if Tang 13 used her absolute ghost eyes, it should not be this scary. The eye power of the absolute ghost eyes should not be able to resist the pressure of the exterminating plane. Tang 13 also had a strange expression on her face. After a moment of hesitation, she said, "Nietian, when I activated my vanishing shadow ghost eyes just now, I had a very strange feeling, as if some kind of power had entered my ghost eyes. Now, I do not feel any pressure at all. It is like the exterminating plane is my own power. It does not pressure me anymore." Nietian stared at Tang 13 in astonishment. For a moment, he was at a loss for words.